The room wasn't supposed to notice her, but when Elena Varelli stepped through those gilded doors in crimson silk, every conversation in the Manhattan ballroom died like someone had cut the power. She wasn't invited to belong here. She was invited to fail. The partners who'd signed that cream-colored invitation expected her to shrink, to stumble, to prove she'd never deserved a seat at their table. Instead, she walked in like she owned the oxygen they were breathing. And Adrian Cade, the CEO who'd overlooked her for 7 brutal years, felt something cold slide down his spine. Recognition. He'd made a mistake. A big one. If you want to see Elena destroy an entire empire with a red dress and the undeniable truth, then follow this story to the end. Like and comment the name of the city you're watching. I want to know how far my story has progressed. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, slipped between a stack of overdue invoices and a reminder about her student loan payment. Cream cardstock, embossed lettering, the kind of paper that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Cade and Vestry Annual Gala. Black tie. Manhattan Plaza Hotel. Elena Varelli held it up to the light in her cramped studio apartment where the radiator clanged like it had a grudge and the neighbor's TV bled through the walls. She'd worked at Cade and Vestry for 7 years. 7 years of double-checking other people's work, fetching coffee that cost $18 a cup, and swallowing every casual dismissal like bitter medicine. Junior assistants didn't get invited to the gala. Hell, most mid-level associates didn't get invited to the gala. She flipped the card over, no personal note, no explanation. Just her name, printed in that elegant serif font that screamed money you'll never have. Her first instinct was to throw it away. Her second instinct, the one that lived somewhere deeper, in the part of her chest that still remembered what it felt like to want something, was to go. Not because she belonged there, but because they clearly thought she didn't. The Plaza Hotel rose against the Manhattan skyline like a cathedral of old money and new cruelty. Elena stepped out of the subway at 59th Street, her crimson dress folded carefully in a garment bag, her good heels clicking against pavement still damp from earlier rain. She'd bought the dress 3 years ago for a wedding that never happened, her own. The engagement had dissolved 6 weeks before the ceremony, leaving her with a closet full of things she'd never worn and a bank account she couldn't afford to refill. Tonight felt like a good night to burn that particular bridge. She changed in the plaza's public restroom, the kind with marble counters and attendants who pretended not to see women like her. The dress slid over her hips like a second skin, deep red silk that didn't apologize for anything. She'd lost weight since the fitting. Stress did that, turned meals into forgotten appointments. But it still fit, barely. Her reflection stared back, dark hair pulled into a low twist, minimal jewelry, lips the color of a warning. She looked expensive. She looked dangerous. She looked nothing like the woman who'd spent 7 years making herself invisible. The ballroom doors opened into a world she'd only ever seen from the margins. Crystal chandeliers threw light like weapons. A string quartet played something classical and bloodless in the corner. The air smelled like imported lilies and the kind of confidence that came from never having to check a price tag. Elena stepped inside. The first person to notice was Marcus Chen, senior partner, the man who'd once asked her to proofread a contract while he was actively in a meeting about that same contract. He was mid-laugh, champagne flute raised, when his eyes caught hers. The laugh died in his throat. His hand froze. Then, Diane Keller, the woman who'd forgotten to include Elena in the email chain about a major client pitch, despite Elena having done 80% of the research. Diane's smile went brittle, her gaze sharpening like she'd just spotted a stain on expensive upholstery. Conversations didn't stop all at once. It was more like dominoes, one person noticing, then another, then a cluster, then a wave. The room didn't go silent, but it shifted. The air pressure changed. Elena walked further in, her heels sinking into carpet so thick it felt like walking on clouds made of other people's money. She kept her chin level, her shoulders back. She'd learned that posture from her grandmother, a woman who'd cleaned houses for 30 years and never once let anyone make her feel small. "Elena?" The voice came from her left. She turned. Adrian Cade stood near the bar, a tumbler of something amber in his hand, his expression caught between surprise and something that might have been concern. He was tall, mid-40s, with the kind of face that aged into authority instead of softness. sharp jaw, steel gray eyes, a navy suit that probably cost more than her rent. He was also the man who'd signed her invitation. "Mr. Cade." Her voice came out steady. "Good."
He hesitated, which was unusual. Adrian Cade didn't hesitate. He made decisions the way other people breathed. "I didn't expect you to come." "That's clear." His jaw tightened. Around them, people were pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. Elena could feel the weight of their attention like hands on her skin. "You look," Adrian started, then stopped, looked at her again, really looked, like he was seeing something he'd missed. "Different."
"I'm wearing a dress instead of business casual," Elena said flatly. Radical transformation. A muscle jumped in his cheek. Before he could respond, another voice cut in, high, polished, sharp as good silver. "Adrian, darling, you didn't mention we were doing charity work tonight." Lillian Frost materialized beside Adrian like she'd been summoned. She was stunning in the way certain women were stunning, blonde, statuesque, wearing diamonds like they were part of her skeletal structure. Her smile was perfect. Her eyes were poison. Elena had met Lillian exactly twice. Both times Lillian had looked through her like she was furniture. "Lillian," Adrian's tone held a warning.
"I'm just surprised," Lillian continued, her gaze sliding over Elena's dress with the precision of a coroner examining a body. "I didn't realize we were opening the event to support staff." The words landed like a slap. Elena could have shrunk, could have apologized, could have backed toward the door and disappeared into the night like she'd never been there. Instead, she smiled.
"I didn't realize Cade and Vestry had started outsourcing their thinking to decorative accessories," Elena said pleasantly. "But I suppose everyone needs a hobby." Lillian's face went very still. Adrian choked on his drink. Somewhere behind them, someone laughed, quickly stifled. "Excuse me?" Lillian's voice could have cut glass. "You're excused," Elena said. Then she turned to Adrian. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Cade. I'll try not to embarrass you too much." She walked away before either of them could respond, her heart slamming against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Her hands were shaking. She grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter just to have something to hold, something to keep her fingers from betraying her. What the hell was she doing? This wasn't her. Elena Varelli didn't talk back. She kept her head down, did her work, survived. That was the plan. That had always been the plan, except the plan had gotten her exactly nowhere. 7 years of survival, and she was still the woman people forgot to include in emails. That was spectacular. Elena turned. A woman stood beside her, older, maybe late 50s, with silver hair and a black dress that looked like it cost more than a car. Her eyes were bright with something that might have been amusement. "I'm sorry," Elena said. "Don't be. Lillian Frost is a narcissist with a trust fund and no discernible skills beyond spending other people's money. Someone should have said that to her years ago." The woman extended a hand. "Victoria Huang. I don't believe we've met." Elena shook her hand, still off balance. "Elena Varelli. I work at Cade and Vestry." "I know." That stopped her. "You do?" Victoria's smile was enigmatic. "I make it my business to know interesting people. And you, Ms. Varelli, are very interesting." Before Elena could ask what that meant, a man approached. Younger, sharp-suited, with an iPad and the harried expression of someone managing a crisis in real time. "Ms. Huang, the Singapore delegation is asking about the timeline." "Tell them I'll call Monday," Victoria said, without looking at him. Then, to Elena, "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Victoria moved through the crowd like water, and Elena found herself following, champagne flute still clutched in her hand. "How long have you been at Cade and Vestry?" Victoria asked. 7 years? "And what do you do there?" Elena almost laughed. "Officially, junior research assistant. Unofficially, whatever needs doing that no one else wants to do." "You have a law degree from Columbia." Elena stopped walking. "How do you—" "I also know you completed a dual master's in international development and public policy. Graduated summa cum laude. Turned down a fellowship in Geneva to stay in New York." Victoria paused, turning to face her. "Why?" The question hit harder than it should have. Elena opened her mouth, closed it. The real answer was complicated. Student debt, a sick mother who'd needed her close, a relationship that had promised stability until it hadn't. The simple answer was easier. Personal reasons, Elena said. Victoria studied her for a long moment, then nodded, like Elena had just confirmed something. 6 years ago, someone designed a literacy initiative that brought education access to 70,000 children across Southeast Asia. Mobile learning units, community partnerships, locally sourced content. It won the UNESCO Innovation Award. Do you know who designed it? Elena's chest tightened. That was a team effort. You were 26 years old and working 16-hour days for an NGO that paid you barely enough to cover rent. You wrote the proposal, secured the funding, and managed implementation across 4 countries while your supervisors took credit. Victoria's voice was matter-of-fact. I was one of the investors. I read every report. Your name appeared exactly twice in the final documentation, both times misspelled. The champagne flute was suddenly very heavy in Elena's hand. Why are you telling me this? She asked quietly. Because I'm considering a significant investment in Cade Investry's new international division. And before I commit $200 million, I want to understand what kind of talent they're actually cultivating. Victoria's gaze was steady. Or wasting. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Before Elena could respond, there was a commotion near the entrance. Heads turned. The string quartet faltered. A young woman had entered, early 20s, phone held high, her voice carrying across the ballroom with the particular kind of projection that came from being raised on social media. Absolutely wild that they invited her. Like, who even is she? Some assistant? She was talking to someone off camera, but her voice was loud enough that half the room could hear. Elena's stomach dropped as she recognized the angle. The girl's phone camera was pointed directly at her. Wait, guys, I think she heard me. The girl laughed, not bothering to lower her voice. Oh my God, this is perfect. Okay, so apparently Cade Investry is doing this whole diversity hire thing now, and they literally invited their coffee girl to the gala as like a PR stunt? It's giving charity case. It's giving cringe. The blood drained from Elena's face. Around her, people were staring. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked curious, waiting to see what would happen. Victoria Huang's expression had gone very cold. Adrian Cade was pushing through the crowd, his face tight with something that might have been anger, but Elena didn't wait to find out. She set her champagne glass down on the nearest table, carefully, because her hands were shaking again, and turned toward the exit. She made it 3 steps before Marcus Chen stepped into her path. Elena. His smile was all teeth, no warmth. Leaving so soon, but you just got here. Excuse me, she said quietly. I have to say, I was surprised to see your name on the guest list. Marcus had clearly had several drinks. His words had that loose, dangerous quality. What did you do to earn an invitation? Or should I not ask? The implication was clear, ugly. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Not break, but shift, like a fault line adjusting before an earthquake. I showed up, she said, loud enough that people nearby stopped pretending not to listen. That's apparently more than most people here can manage without a trust fund and a personality transplant. Marcus's smile froze. You want to know what I do at Cade Investry, Marcus? I fix your mistakes. I clean up your messes. I do the work you can't be bothered to do because you're too busy taking 4-hour lunches and billing clients for your golf games. Her voice was steady now, clear. I've been doing it for 7 years. And the only reason you don't know that is because you've never once bothered to look. Someone gasped. The influencer's phone camera swiveled toward them. Marcus's face went red. How dare you? She dares because she's right. Victoria Huang's voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. She moved to stand beside Elena, her presence suddenly commanding in a way that made Marcus take an involuntary step back. I've spent the last month reviewing Cade Investry's project files, Victoria continued. Would you like to know whose analysis I found most consistently accurate? Whose research was most thorough? Whose recommendations were buried in footnotes because they came from someone without the right pedigree? She paused. It wasn't yours, Mr. Chen. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. Adrian had finally reached them, Lillian trailing behind him. His expression was unreadable. Victoria, he said carefully, perhaps we should discuss this privately. No? Victoria's tone left no room for argument. I think we should discuss this right here, Adrian, because I'm about to make a decision about $200 million, and I need to understand what kind of firm you're running. The ballroom had gone completely silent now. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Do you cultivate talent? Victoria asked. Or do you just exploit it until it breaks? Adrian's jaw worked. He looked at Elena, really looked at her, and she saw something shift in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or shame. Elena has been an asset to this firm, he said finally. An asset. Victoria's laugh was sharp. Like furniture. Like equipment. Tell me, Adrian, when was the last time you promoted an asset? When was the last time you paid one what they were worth? Miss Huang, with all due respect, Lillian started. You don't get to speak, Victoria said, not even glancing at her. You're here because you're decorative. This conversation is above your pay grade. Oh, wait, you don't have one. Lillian's face went white. The influencer was still filming, her eyes wide. Elena felt like she was floating outside her body, watching this happen to someone else. This wasn't how the night was supposed to go. She was supposed to arrive, prove she could hold her own, and leave. Quiet dignity. That was the plan. Instead, she'd apparently started a war. I think, Adrian said slowly, his eyes still on Elena, we should table this conversation until Monday. Victoria, I'd be happy to meet with you privately. No. Elena's voice surprised her. It came out stronger than she expected. No, let's do this now. Adrian blinked. Elena, you invited me here to fail, she said. The words tasted like truth. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone thought it would be funny to watch me stumble. Maybe you genuinely thought I'd be grateful for the scraps. She paused. But I'm done with that version of this story. That's not, Adrian started. 7 years, Elena interrupted. I've worked for this firm for 7 years. I've made you money. I've saved you money. I've done work that people with corner offices and six-figure salaries couldn't do. And you know what I got in return? A salary that barely covers rent in a city where you all own penthouses. No credit, no recognition, no future. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Her voice was steady. So here's what's going to happen, she continued. I'm going to leave. I'm going to walk out of here with whatever dignity I have left. And on Monday morning, I'm going to start looking for a job somewhere that actually values competence over pedigree. She turned to Victoria. Thank you for speaking up. I appreciate it more than you know. Victoria nodded, something like respect in her eyes. Elena started towards the door. The crowd parted for her this time, people stepping back like she was radioactive. She'd almost made it to the exit when Adrian caught her arm. Wait. His grip was gentle, but firm. Elena looked down at his hand, then up at his face. Let me go, she said quietly. Elena, please, just give me 5 minutes. Let me explain. Explain what? That you didn't mean to humiliate me? That this was all a misunderstanding? She pulled her arm free. I don't need your explanations, Mr. Cade. I need you to let me leave. Something in his expression cracked. You're right. That stopped her. About all of it, Adrian continued, his voice low enough that only she could hear. You're right, and I'm sorry. Elena studied his face. He looked genuine. He probably was genuine. It didn't matter. 7 years too late, she said. Then she walked out. The cold air hit her like a fist when she stepped onto Fifth Avenue. Elena walked blindly, her heels clicking against pavement, the city lights blurring together. She made it 2 blocks before her legs gave out. She sat down on a bench near Central Park, the crimson dress pooling around her like blood. Her whole body was shaking now. Adrenaline crash, shock, the aftermath of burning every bridge she'd spent 7 years building. What had she done? Her phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously. She pulled it out with numb fingers. Notifications. Dozens of them. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. The influencer had posted the video. Of course she had. Elena watched it with a kind of detached horror. There she was, in crimson silk, telling Marcus Chen exactly what she thought of him. The camera caught everything, her expression, her voice, the moment Victoria Huang had stepped in like some kind of corporate guardian angel. The comments were already rolling in. Who is she? I love her. This is what eating the rich looks like. Someone hire this woman. Cade and Vestry about to get destroyed. Okay, but that dress though? The video had been up for 20 minutes. It already had 50,000 views. Elena's hands started shaking again, but this time for a different reason. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Ms. Varelli? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. This is Amanda Reeves from the New York Times. I'm reaching out regarding the incident at tonight's Cade and Vestry Gala. Would you be available for comment? Elena hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. Ms. Varelli, this is Jake Morrison from BuzzFeed News. She turned the phone off, sat there in her expensive dress on a bench near Central Park, watching traffic blur past, and tried to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do now. She'd wanted to make them see her. Mission accomplished. Now the whole world was watching. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a car crash. Elena's phone had 63 missed calls when she turned it on. The video had 2 million views. Someone had found her LinkedIn profile and shared it, along with screenshots of her Columbia degree and the UNESCO award Victoria Huang had mentioned. The internet had apparently decided she was a hero. Cade and Vestry, meanwhile, had decided she was a problem. The email from HR was waiting in her inbox when she checked at 6 a.m. Ms. Varelli, your presence is requested in Conference Room A at 9 a.m. to discuss recent events. Please come prepared to explain your conduct at Saturday's gala. No signature, just a timestamp and a tone that promised nothing good. Elena dressed carefully. Black suit, white blouse, her hair pulled back so tight it hurt. Armor. She'd learned early that looking put together was half the battle when people were determined to see you fall apart. The subway was packed with Monday morning bodies. Nobody recognized her. Why would they? Viral fame was selective, ephemeral. In real life, she was just another woman in a black suit trying to survive the week. Cade and Vestry's offices occupied floors 15 through 20 of a glass tower in Midtown. Elena had walked through that lobby 1,000 times. Today felt different. The security guard at the desk looked at her strangely. Morning, Ms. Varelli, he said. His tone was odd. Uncertain, maybe. Like he wasn't sure if he should be friendly or formal. Morning, James? She took the elevator to 15. The ride up felt longer than usual. The office was already buzzing when she arrived. People looked up as she walked past, their expressions ranging from curiosity to something that might have been respect. Or pity. Hard to tell. Carla from accounting gave her a quick thumbs up. David from litigation avoided eye contact entirely. Elena kept walking. Conference room A was at the end of the hall. Large windows, long table, the kind of space designed for important conversations and calculated intimidation. 5 people were already waiting. Marcus Chen sat at the far end, his expression carefully neutral. Diane Keller was beside him, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. 2 other senior partners Elena barely knew flanked them like bookends. And at the head of the table, finger steepled, expression unreadable, Adrian Cade. Ms. Varelli, he said, please, sit down. Elena remained standing. I'd rather not, thank you. Adrian's jaw tightened. This isn't a request, I know, but I'm not here to make anyone comfortable. She looked around the table. So let's skip the part where we pretend this is a conversation and get to the part where you tell me I'm fired. Silence dropped like a stone. Marcus cleared his throat. Elena, we're not. Yes, you are. She cut him off. The video's gone viral. You're getting backlash. Clients are asking questions. Investors are concerned. I'm a liability now, and liabilities get cut. So let's just sit down. Adrian's voice wasn't loud, but it had weight. Elena sat. He studied her for a long moment, then slid a folder across the table. She didn't touch it. Open it, he said. She did. Inside, printouts of the viral video, screenshots of tweets, articles from 3 different news outlets, all published in the last 24 hours. One headline stood out, Cade and Vestry under fire. Junior employees' viral speech exposes toxic culture. Elena's stomach twisted. The board convened an emergency meeting yesterday, Adrian said. They're concerned. About their reputation, Elena said flatly. About damage control. Marcus leaned forward. Elena, you humiliated senior partners at a major firm event. You made serious allegations about workplace culture. You did it in front of a major investor and someone recording for social media. Do you understand the position that puts us in? Do you understand the position you put me in? Elena shot back. You invited me to an event where people openly mocked me, where someone implied I'd slept my way into an invitation, where I was treated like a joke for having the audacity to show up. No one said, Diane started. Marcus did. Lillian Frost did. That influencer did, and none of you stopped them. Elena's voice was sharp now. You want to talk about humiliation? Try spending 7 years being invisible. Try doing work that matters and watching other people take credit. Try being good enough to use but not good enough to value. The room went quiet. Adrian's expression was hard to read. You're not wrong. Everyone turned to look at him. About any of it, he continued. The way you've been treated here is unacceptable. The fact that it took a viral video for us to have this conversation is unacceptable. And yes, the board wants you gone. They think removing you will contain the damage. Elena's hands curled into fists under the table. So that's it then? No. She looked up sharply. I told them no, Adrian said. I told them that firing you would prove every word you said was true. That it would make us look exactly like what people are already accusing us of being. He paused. They weren't happy about it. Marcus looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. Adrian, the partners have a right to. The partners can take it up with me. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. Elena stays. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Elena stared at him, trying to process what she'd just heard. Why? Because you're right, Adrian said simply. And because I'm tired of running a firm that punishes people for telling the truth. That's a very convenient position to take now that there are cameras involved, Elena said. His jaw tightened. You think I'm doing this for optics? Aren't you? If I wanted optics, I'd fire you and issue a statement about upholding professional standards. Adrian stood, bracing his hands on the table. Instead, I'm about to lose 3 senior partners, tank my relationship with the board, and probably destroy any chance I have at the CEO position next year. Does that sound like optics to you? Elena didn't have an answer for that. Marcus pushed back from the table. This is insane, Adrian. You're going to blow up the firm over one assistant's hurt feelings? She's not an assistant, Adrian said quietly. She's a Columbia-educated attorney with a dual master's degree who designed an award-winning international initiative before she was 30. And we've spent 7 years treating her like she's disposable. He looked at Marcus. If that doesn't bother you, then maybe you're the problem. Marcus's face went red. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against floor. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured about. Then leave, Adrian said. The 2 men stared at each other across the table. The air felt charged, dangerous. Finally, Marcus grabbed his briefcase. The board's going to hear about this. I'm counting on it. Marcus stormed out. The door slammed behind him. Diane and the other partners exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they stood and filed out, leaving Elena alone with Adrian. The silence stretched. Why did you invite me? Elena asked finally. To the gala. Why? Adrian sank back into his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Lillian's idea, actually. She thought it would be, good optics. Show that we value all our employees, not just the partners. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I didn't think you'd actually come. You thought I'd know my place. I thought you'd see it for what it was. A token gesture, and ignore it. He rubbed his face. I was wrong. About a lot of things. You still haven't answered my question? Why are you doing this, really? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. My father started this firm 40 years ago. Built it from nothing. He had this saying, character is what you do when no one's watching. I've spent the last decade watching this place turn into everything he would have hated, and I let it happen because it was easier than fighting. He stood, walked to the window, stared out at the Manhattan skyline. That video, he continued quietly, watching you stand there and call us out, it was like having a mirror held up, and I didn't like what I saw. So this is about redemption, Elena said. Your conscience couldn't take it. Maybe. He turned back to face her. Or maybe I'm just tired of being complicit. Elena wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him, but she'd spent 7 years learning that powerful men rarely changed unless it benefited them. What happens now? She asked. Now, Adrian said, we figure out how to fix this mess. Together. I don't work for you anymore. You do, actually. I doubled your salary effective immediately, and I'm moving you to the International Development Division, the one Victoria Huang is considering investing in. He pulled out another folder, slid it across the table. Senior consultant position. Your own team. Actual authority to make decisions. Elena stared at the folder like it might bite her. This is what you should have had years ago. Adrian's voice was rough. I can't fix the past 7 years, Elena, but I can try to fix what comes next. She opened the folder slowly. The contract inside was real, detailed, specific, generous in ways that made her chest tight. The board's going to fight this, she said. Let them. You could lose everything. I've already lost the things that matter. He met her eyes. My integrity. My father's respect, if he were still alive to give it. My own self-respect. He paused. I'd like to try getting some of that back. Elena looked down at the contract. The salary was more than she'd made in 2 years. The title was real. The opportunity was everything she'd wanted, and it terrified her. I need time, she said, to think about this. Take all the time you need. She stood, contract in hand, and walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. Adrian? Yes? If this is a game, if you're playing me to save face, I will burn this place to the ground. He smiled, and for the first time since she'd known him, it looked genuine. I'd expect nothing less. The week that followed was chaos in slow motion. 3 senior partners resigned. 2 more threatened to, unless Adrian reversed course. The board called an emergency session. Closed door, no minutes. Rumors flew through the office like wildfire. Adrian was out. Adrian was staging a coup. Adrian had lost his mind. The video kept spreading. News outlets picked it up. Think pieces appeared. The corporate glass ceiling, when viral moments expose systemic problems. Who is Elena Varelli? Elena stopped reading them. She'd taken a week of personal time, something she'd never done in 7 years, and holed up in her apartment, trying to figure out what she wanted. The contract sat on her kitchen table like a test she couldn't pass or fail, only answer. On Wednesday, Victoria Huang called. I'm pulling my investment, she said without preamble. Elena's stomach dropped. Because of me? Because of them. Victoria's voice was sharp. I don't invest in organizations that punish integrity, but I'm interested in investing in people who have it. I don't understand. I'm starting a new fund. Social impact, international development, education access. I need someone to run it who actually understands the work. Someone who won't treat it like a charity case or a photo opportunity. A pause. I'd like that someone to be you. Elena sat down hard on her couch. The offer is competitive. 6-figure salary, equity stake, full autonomy. You'd build the team, choose the projects, control the direction. Victoria's tone softened slightly. You'd be doing the work you were meant to do instead of fixing other people's mistakes. It was perfect. It was everything. And it meant walking away from Cade and Vestry entirely. Can I think about it? Elena asked. You have until Monday. The call ended. Elena sat in her quiet apartment, 2 offers on the table, 2 completely different futures. Stay at Cade and Vestry, prove she could change the system from inside, help Adrian rebuild something better. It was noble. It was hard. It was probably doomed. Join Victoria, do meaningful work, build something from scratch, escape the toxicity entirely. It was clean. It was smart. It was safe. Her phone buzzed. Text message from a number she didn't recognize. This is Lillian Frost. We need to talk. Plaza Hotel, Friday, 7 p.m. Come alone. Elena stared at the message. Friday came faster than she wanted. The Plaza Bar was everything expensive places were. Dim lighting, leather chairs, cocktails that cost $30, and came with a single perfect ice sphere. Elena arrived at 6:55 wearing jeans and a blazer, her hair down for once. Lillian was already there, tucked into a corner booth, looking immaculate in cream cashmere. She didn't smile when Elena approached. Sit, Lillian said. Elena sat. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lillian pushed a glass across the table, something clear and botanical, probably gin.
I didn't poison it, Lillian said dryly. That's exactly what someone who poisoned it would say. Lillian's lips twitched, almost a smile. Fair enough. Elena took a careful sip. Good gin. Very good gin. Why am I here, Lillian? Because I owe you an apology. The words came out stiff, like they hurt. What I said at the gala was cruel and undeserved. Elena waited.
I've spent my entire life being told I'm only valuable for how I look, Lillian continued. My family, my so-called friends, even Adrian, they all see me as decorative, useful for events and photographs and making the right impression. She looked down at her drink. I've built my whole identity around being untouchable. Above it all. Better than everyone else, because if I'm not better, then what's the point? That doesn't excuse what you said. No, it doesn't. Lillian met her eyes. But maybe it explains it. Watching you walk in that night, looking like you belonged there without needing anyone's permission. It was like looking in a mirror and hating what I saw. Elena hadn't expected honesty, didn't know what to do with it. You and Adrian, she said carefully. You're together. We're together. Lillian's smile was bitter. He ended it, said he couldn't be with someone who treated people the way I treated you. Said he was tired of being complicit in cruelty. She laughed, but it sounded broken. Turns out, I was just another thing he tolerated until he couldn't anymore. I'm sorry, Elena said, and meant it. Don't be. I earned this. Lillian finished her drink in one long swallow. I'm not here for sympathy, Elena. I'm here because I wanted you to know that I see what I did, and I'm trying to do better. Why tell me? Because you're the only person who seems to actually give a damn about doing the right thing, even when it costs you. Lillian stood, leaving cash on the table. Too much, definitely too much. For what it's worth, I think you should take Victoria's offer. Get out while you still believe people can change. She walked away before Elena could respond. Elena sat there for a long time, nursing her gin, thinking about choices and consequences and the difference between redemption and self-destruction. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. The board voted. I'm out as CEO effective end of month, but the new international division is approved. The offer still stands if you want it. Another buzz. Victoria. I need your answer by tomorrow morning. The fund is moving forward either way. Elena closed her eyes. 2 offers, 2 futures. One where she stayed and fought in a system designed to break her. One where she walked away and built something new. She thought about her grandmother, who'd cleaned houses and raised 3 kids and never once apologized for taking up space. She thought about the 70,000 children who'd learned to read because she'd refused to accept that some problems were too big to solve. She thought about this woman she'd been 7 years ago, full of hope and certainty that the world could be better. And she thought about the woman she'd become, harder, sharper, but still standing. Elena opened her eyes, made her choice, and texted back. Elena texted back 2 words. I'm in. Not to Victoria, to Adrian. She sent Victoria's message a minute later. Thank you for the offer. I'm staying at Cade and Vestry. The response came back almost immediately. You're making a mistake. Maybe. Probably. But it was her mistake to make. Monday morning, Elena walked into Cade and Vestry's offices with her head high and her stomach in knots. The contract was signed, sitting in her bag like a loaded gun. Senior consultant, International Development Division, her own team. It felt like wearing someone else's skin. The office looked different now, or maybe she looked different. People stared openly as she walked past. Some nodded, others whispered. A few looked angry, like her presence was a personal offense. Carla from accounting grabbed her arm as she passed. You really did it, she whispered. You actually stayed. Apparently. Half the office thinks you're insane. The other half thinks you're a saint. Carla's grip tightened. For what it's worth, I think you're brave. Elena didn't feel brave. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to see if someone would push her or if she'd jump on her own. Adrian's office was on the 20th floor, corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of view that cost more than most people made in a year. His assistant, a nervous-looking woman named Sarah, waved Elena through without a word. Adrian was on the phone when she entered, his back to the door, tension visible in the line of his shoulders. Don't care what the board thinks, Michael. The decision's made. Yes, I understand the implications. No, I'm not reconsidering. He hung up, turned. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled, and there were shadows under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Elena, his voice was rough. You came. I signed the contract. Something shifted in his expression, relief, maybe, or vindication. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. She set her bag down on the chair across from his desk. Victoria made a very compelling offer. I know. She called me yesterday. Told me I was an idiot if I let you stay in a toxic environment. Adrian's smile was bitter. She wasn't wrong. So why did you fight for me? The question hung between them like smoke. Adrian moved to the window, stared out at Manhattan, stretching below like a promise or a threat. My father built this firm on a principle. You take care of the people who do the work, and the work takes care of itself. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that, started taking care of the people who looked good on paper instead. He turned back to face her. You do the work, Elena, real work, and we've been burying you for 7 years because you didn't fit the profile. His jaw tightened. I'm done with that. Either this firm becomes something worth working for, or it deserves to burn. That's a hell of a gamble. You're worth it. The words landed harder than they should have. Elena felt something twist in her chest. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it. Don't make me regret this, she said quietly. I'll try not to. A knock on the door interrupted them. Sarah poked her head in, looking apologetic. Mr. Cade, the board is requesting your presence. Conference room A. They said it's urgent. Adrian's expression went flat. Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes. Sarah disappeared. This is about me, Elena said. It wasn't a question. Probably. They're going to demand you reverse the decision. Let them. Adrian grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. You're my consultant now. You might as well see how this place really works. Conference room A was packed. 12 board members sat around the table like judges at a trial, their expressions ranging from disapproval to outright hostility. Marcus Chen was there, looking smug. Diane Keller sat beside him, carefully neutral. And at the far end, looking like she owned the oxygen in the room, Patricia Drummond, chairwoman of the board, 72 years old and sharp as broken glass. Adrian walked in like he was heading into battle. Elena followed, acutely aware of every eye tracking her movement. Adrian, Patricia's voice could have cut steel. Thank you for joining us. And Ms. Varelli, how unexpected. Elena is my senior consultant, Adrian said calmly. She has every right to be here. Does she? Patricia's tone made it clear that wasn't a question. Sit down, both of you. We have things to discuss. They sat. Patricia steepled her fingers, her gaze settling on Adrian with the weight of 40 years of institutional power. The board has reviewed your recent decisions. We have concerns. I'm sure you do. Don't be flippant, Adrian. This is serious. Patricia glanced at a folder in front of her. In the past week, you've lost 3 senior partners, alienated the rest, and promoted a junior assistant to a senior position despite having no track record in management or client relations. You've done this while we're in the middle of critical negotiations with potential investors, and while the firm is under public scrutiny due to a viral incident. The viral incident happened because we created an environment where mistreatment was acceptable, Adrian said. I'm correcting that. You're correcting it by promoting the woman who caused the incident? I'm correcting it by promoting the woman who exposed problems we should have fixed years ago. Adrian's voice was level, but Elena could hear the steel underneath. Elena didn't cause anything, Patricia. She revealed what was already there. Marcus leaned forward. With all due respect, Adrian, this looks like damage control. You're making a symbolic gesture to appease the mob. The mob? Adrian repeated slowly. You mean the public? The clients who are asking why we treat our employees like disposable assets? I mean the Twitter activists who don't understand how businesses actually operate, Marcus shot back. We're not a charity, Adrian. We're a law firm. We have standards. And Elena exceeds them. Adrian pulled out his own folder, slid it across the table. Columbia Law, dual master's degree, designed an award-winning international initiative. 7 years of exemplary work here that we systematically ignored because she didn't come from the right background. If those aren't your standards, Marcus, then maybe your standards are the problem. Marcus's face went red. Patricia held up a hand. Enough. This isn't productive. She looked at Elena directly for the first time. Miss Varelli, you've been remarkably quiet. Elena met her gaze. I'm listening. Are you? Patricia's eyes were cold, calculating. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've leveraged a viral video into a promotion you haven't earned. It looks like you're using public sympathy to force your way into a position you're not qualified for. The words were designed to wound. Elena felt them land, felt the old instinct to shrink, to apologize, to make herself small. Instead, she smiled. You're right, she said. I haven't earned this position. Not by your standards. Adrian stiffened beside her. I've only spent 7 years doing work that senior partners couldn't do, Elena continued. I've only saved this firm millions of dollars in lost contracts and bad decisions. I've only built relationships with international organizations that you can't even pronounce the names of correctly. She leaned forward. But you're right, Mrs. Drummond. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't summer in the Hamptons. I didn't have a father who played golf with federal judges. So by your standards, by the standards that value pedigree over competence, I haven't earned anything. The room had gone very quiet. The question is, Elena said softly, are those the standards you want to keep? Patricia's expression was unreadable. You have a high opinion of yourself, Ms. Varelli. No. I have an accurate opinion of my abilities. There's a difference. Is there? Patricia glanced at the other board members. Adrian, may I speak with you privately? Anything you need to say can be said in front of Elena. Can it? Patricia's tone hardened. Very well, the board has voted. Effective immediately, you are removed as CEO. James Whitmore will assume interim leadership while we conduct a search for permanent replacement. The room seemed to tilt. Adrian's face went very still. You can't do that. We can. We just did. Patricia stood. You've made your position clear, Adrian. You'd rather destroy this firm than admit you made a mistake. The board can't allow that. This isn't about the firm, Adrian said, his voice dangerously quiet. This is about control. You can't stand that I made a decision without asking permission. You made a reckless decision that threatens our reputation and our bottom line. Patricia's voice was sharp. We're protecting the firm from your ego. My ego? Adrian stood abruptly, chair scraping. I'm trying to fix a culture that's been broken for a decade. You're trying to preserve a system that only works for people who already have power. And you're willing to sacrifice everything for one employee. Patricia looked at Elena. I hope she's worth it. Elena felt every eye in the room turn to her. The weight of it was crushing. Not shame exactly, but something close. Responsibility. Consequence. She is, Adrian said. Patricia's smile was cold. Then you'll have plenty of time to find out. You have until end of day to clear your office. Security will escort you out. She swept out of the room, the other board members following like a funeral procession. Marcus paused at the door, looking back at Adrian with something that might have been pity. You did this to yourself, Marcus said. Then they were gone. The silence that followed was suffocating. Adrian stood at the window, his back to Elena, his shoulders rigid. She could see his reflection in the glass. His face was blank, carefully controlled, but his hands were shaking. Adrian, don't. His voice was rough. Just don't. They can't just remove you. You built half of what this firm is. They can do whatever they want. I knew the risk when I made the decision. He turned to face her. His eyes were dark, hollow. This isn't your fault, Elena. Isn't it? No. He said it firmly. This is on them. On a system that punishes integrity and rewards conformity. You didn't create that. You just refused to participate in it. Elena wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe she wasn't responsible for the wreckage currently unfolding, but the guilt sat in her chest like a stone. What happens now? She asked. Now? Adrian laughed, but there was no humor in it. Now I figure out what the hell I do with the rest of my life. You, on the other hand, still have a job. What? The contract I signed with you is binding. The board can remove me, but they can't void agreements I made as CEO without cause. You're still senior consultant. You still have your team. He paused. Or you will, once they assign you a new supervisor. I don't want a new supervisor. I want... Elena stopped. What did she want? She wanted to rewind the clock, wanted to unsend that text message to Adrian, wanted to take Victoria's offer and disappear into work that mattered without all this collateral damage. But it was too late for that. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Don't be. Adrian grabbed his briefcase, started gathering files from the table. I made my choice. I'd make it again. Even knowing it would cost you everything? He looked at her for a long moment. Yeah, even then. The news spread through the office like wildfire. By noon, everyone knew Adrian was out. By 1 p.m., security was escorting him from the building, a cardboard box of personal effects in his arms. Elena watched from the 15th floor, her stomach churning. She should have gone down there, should have said something, but the words wouldn't come. Carla appeared at her elbow. Jesus Christ, they actually did it. Yeah. You know this is going to get worse, right? The board's going to come after you next. Elena did know, could feel it coming like a storm on the horizon. Let them, she said, but her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. The rest of the week was a masterclass in institutional hostility. Elena's new office, previously promised as part of her senior consultant package, was suddenly under renovation. Her team of 3 junior associates was reassigned to other projects. Her access to certain files was quietly restricted, and her new supervisor, James Whitmore, the interim CEO, made it clear in their first meeting that he considered her presence a liability. I'm going to be frank with you, Ms. Varelli, James said. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of patrician bearing that came from generations of inherited wealth. I don't agree with Adrian's decision to promote you. I think it was emotionally driven and strategically unsound. They were in his office, smaller than Adrian's had been, but still commanding. Elena sat across from him, her spine straight, her hands folded in her lap. That's your prerogative, she said. However, James continued, the board has decided that terminating you now would create more problems than it solves. So you're staying. But understand this. You will be watched. Every decision you make, every project you touch will be scrutinized. If you give us cause, any cause, to terminate your contract, we will. I understand. Do you? James leaned back in his chair. I'm not Adrian Cade. I don't have sentimental attachments to reforming broken systems. I care about the firm's reputation and profitability. If you threaten either of those things, you're gone. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. He opened a file on his desk. Now, the International Development Division. Adrian made promises about funding, staffing, resources. I'm suspending all of that pending review. Elena's stomach dropped. You can't do that. Victoria Huang's investment was contingent on Ms. Huang withdrew her investment yesterday. Apparently, she's no longer confident in the firm's leadership. James's smile was thin. So there's no reason to rush into expensive commitments. That division was supposed to be my project. It still is. You'll just have to prove it's worth the investment first. He slid a folder across the desk. Here's your first assignment, client review. A manufacturing company that's considering moving operations overseas. They want advice on regulatory compliance and labor law, standard contract work. Should be well within your capabilities. Elena took the folder with numb fingers. This wasn't what she'd signed on for. This was busy work, designed to keep her occupied and out of the way. This isn't international development, she said. No, it's billable hours, which is what keeps this firm running. James's tone was dismissive. If you want to do charity work, Ms. Varelli, there are organizations for that. Here, we serve clients. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to slam the folder on his desk and walk out, but she'd burned her bridges with Victoria. Adrian was gone. She had nowhere else to go. I'll get started, she said. See that you do. That night, Elena sat in her apartment with a bottle of cheap wine and a crushing sense of failure. The contract review spread across her coffee table like an accusation. 50 pages of dense legal text about factory conditions and wage regulations. It was important work. It mattered. But it wasn't what she'd stayed for. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Meet me. Vanguard Bar on 8th, 9 p.m. A. Adrian. Elena stared at the message for a long time. Every rational instinct told her to ignore it. He was out of the firm. Associating with him would only give James more ammunition. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Vanguard Bar was the kind of place that didn't advertise. Basement entrance, dim lighting, whiskey selection that cost a mortgage payment. Adrian sat at the far end of the bar, nursing something amber, looking like he hadn't shaved in days. He looked up when she approached. "You came." "Against my better judgment. Story of my life." He gestured to the bartender. "What are you drinking?" "Whatever's cheapest." Adrian ordered 2 fingers of Maker's Mark. The bartender poured without comment. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past week pressing down like atmosphere. "How bad is it?" Adrian asked finally. "Shanda." "James suspended the international division, reassigned my team, gave me contract review work." Elena took a long drink. "I'm basically back where I started." "Son of a bitch," Adrian's hand tightened around his glass. "He's trying to force you out." "I know. So leave. Take Victoria's offer. Get out before they destroy you." "I can't. Victoria already moved on with someone else." Elena laughed, but it came out bitter. "I made my choice. Now I'm stuck with it." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You warned me." She looked at him. "What about you? What are you doing?" "Drinking, mostly. Fielding calls from headhunters who want to know if the rumors about my catastrophic judgment are true." His smile was self-deprecating. "Turns out, torching your career for principles isn't great for your professional reputation." "Any regrets?" Adrian considered this question. "About promoting you? No. About how I handled it? Probably. I should have built more support before making the move. Should have anticipated the board's reaction. Should have what? Let them bully you into backing down? Maybe. At least then you'd still have your division." Elena shook her head. "You did the right thing, Adrian, even if it didn't work." "Didn't work is putting it mildly. I lost my job. You lost your project. The firm is more toxic than ever. What part of that is right?" "The part where you tried." She met his eyes. "Most people don't even do that." The bartender refreshed their drinks without being asked. Around them, other patrons talked and laughed, living lives that didn't include corporate implosions and moral standoffs. "I got a call from the Times," Adrian said after a moment. "They want an interview, my side of the story." "Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to expose everything, the board's corruption, the systemic problems, all of it. But that would destroy the firm completely. And there are good people there who don't deserve to lose their jobs because I'm angry. So you protect the institution that threw you out. I protect the people inside it." He looked at her. "Including you." Elena's throat tightened. "I can handle myself." "Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're about to get eaten alive." "Then why did you fight for me to stay?" The question came out sharper than she intended. Adrian flinched. "Because I thought I could change things," he said quietly. "I thought if I took a stand, if I showed the board that there were consequences for maintaining a toxic culture, they'd back down. I was wrong. So this was about you, your conscience, your redemption arc." "Maybe it was. At first." He turned to face her fully. "But somewhere in the middle of this mess, it became about you. About the fact that you're brilliant and capable, and you've been buried by people who can't see past their own prejudices. About the fact that you deserve better. I don't need you to save me, Adrian." "I know, but I needed to try." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. Elena looked down at her drink, suddenly unsure what to say. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Email from James Whitmore. Subject line, "Urgent, client meeting." "Tomorrow." She opened it. "Ms. Varelli, client presentation tomorrow, 10 a.m., manufacturing contract. You'll be presenting solo to demonstrate your capabilities. Board members will be attending. Do not disappoint. J.W." Elena's stomach turned to ice. "What is it?" Adrian asked. She showed him the email. His expression darkened. "That bastard. He's setting you up to fail." "What do you mean? You've had that file for what, 6 hours? A presentation like that normally takes a week to prepare. Client meetings with board oversight are high stakes. One mistake and they'll use it as grounds to terminate your contract." Adrian's jaw tightened. "He's engineering your exit. I can handle a presentation. Not this one. Not alone. Not with 6 hours prep time and the board watching for any excuse to fire you. Elena felt panic rising in her chest, sharp and acidic. He was right. She knew he was right, but admitting it felt like surrender. I don't have a choice, she said. You do. Call in sick. Buy yourself time. That's just delaying the inevitable. So fight back. Expose what he's doing. To who? The board? They're the ones who want me gone. Elena stood abruptly, her stool scraping against floor. I have to go. I have work to do. Elena, thank you for the drink. She walked out before he could stop her, before the panic could paralyze her completely. Elena didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by contract documents and legal precedents, trying to build a presentation that wouldn't get her fired. The manufacturing company, Dalton Industries, wanted to move production to Vietnam. They needed analysis of labor regulations, environmental compliance, tax implications. Standard stuff, but dense, complicated. And she had 9 hours to become an expert. By 4 a.m., her eyes were burning. By 6 a.m., she'd assembled something resembling a coherent argument. By 8 a.m., she was in the shower, washing away exhaustion with scalding water and black coffee. She dressed carefully, navy suit, white blouse, her hair pulled back so tight it gave her a headache. War paint, armor. The presentation was in conference room A. Of course it was. Elena arrived 15 minutes early. The room was already set up, projector screen, water glasses positioned with geometric precision. She loaded her presentation, tested the slides, tried to ignore the way her hands were shaking. The door opened. James Whitmore entered, followed by 3 board members she recognized from the vote that had removed Adrian. They took seats at the table without greeting her. Then Marcus Chen walked in, his expression unreadable. Then Diane Keller. Then Patricia Drummond herself, settling into the head of the table like a queen assuming her throne. Ms. Varelli? Patricia's voice was cool. I understand you'll be presenting Dalton Industries' compliance analysis this morning. That's correct. I'm sure it will be thorough. The words were polite. The tone was a threat. The client arrived at exactly 10 a.m., 3 executives from Dalton, led by a man named Robert Chen, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. They shook hands mechanically, sat down, waited. Elena took her position at the front of the room. Good morning, she said. Her voice came out steady. Good. Thank you for meeting with us today. I'm Elena Varelli, Senior Consultant with Cade Investries International Development Division. I'll be walking you through our analysis of regulatory compliance for your proposed Vietnamese operations. She clicked to the first slide, and then she presented. She talked about labor law, environmental standards, tax structures. She cited precedents, referenced case studies, outlined risk factors, and mitigation strategies. The words came automatically, muscle memory from 7 years of doing this work without credit. The Dalton executives took notes, nodded occasionally, asked technical questions that she answered without hesitation. The board members watched like hawks circling prey. 15 minutes in, Patricia interrupted. Ms. Varelli, you mentioned environmental compliance requirements. Can you elaborate on the specific regulations governing industrial wastewater in Vietnamese manufacturing zones? It was a test. A very specific technical test. Elena had read about wastewater regulations at 3 a.m., her vision blurring, coffee going cold beside her. Vietnamese environmental law follows QCVN standards, quality control for national standards, she said. For industrial wastewater, QCVN 40. 2011 sets maximum allowable levels for pollutants, including BOD, COD, and suspended solids. Manufacturing facilities require discharge permits from provincial environmental agencies, and penalties for non-compliance range from operational suspension to criminal liability for severe violations. She paused. However, enforcement varies significantly by province. Northern industrial zones tend to have stricter oversight than southern zones. I'd recommend conducting site-specific environmental audits before committing to a location. Patricia's expression was unreadable. Continue. Elena continued. 30 minutes in, Marcus Chen raised his hand. You're recommending Hanoi as a primary location. What about labor costs? Southern provinces typically offer lower wages. They do, Elena agreed. But Hanoi provides better access to skilled labor, more developed infrastructure, and proximity to shipping routes that reduce logistics costs. The wage differential is offset by efficiency gains. I've included a cost-benefit analysis in Appendix C. She clicked to the appendix. The numbers were there, detailed, irrefutable. Marcus sat back, his jaw tight. 45 minutes in, one of the Dalton executives, a woman named Sarah Winters, leaned forward. "This is impressive work, Ms. Varelli, especially given the timeline. How long did you have to prepare this?" The room went very quiet. Elena could lie, could deflect, could pretend she'd had the normal preparation time. Instead, she smiled. "About 9 hours, Ms. Winters." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. 9 hours? I received the assignment yesterday afternoon. The meeting was scheduled this morning. Elena kept her voice level. "I apologize if the analysis seems rushed. Given more time, I would have included additional case studies and regional comparisons." She looked directly at James Whitmore. "But I understand the firm values efficiency." James's face went carefully blank. Robert Chen, the lead Dalton executive, exchanged glances with his colleagues. Then he laughed, a short, surprised sound. 9 hours, he repeated. "And you produced this?" He gestured to the presentation. "Miss Varelli, I don't know whether to be impressed or concerned about your firm's project management." "Both would be fair," Elena said. The room erupted in surprised laughter, from the Dalton executives at least. The board members looked like they'd swallowed glass. Elena finished the presentation, answered remaining questions, distributed analysis packets with appendices that showed weeks of potential research compressed into a single sleepless night. When the Dalton executive stood to leave, Robert Chen shook her hand firmly. "Excellent work," he said. "Truly. We'll be in touch with next steps." They filed out, still talking amongst themselves, clearly pleased. The board members remained. Patricia Drummond stood slowly, her gaze fixed on Elena like a sniper acquiring a target. "That was quite a performance, Ms. Varelli." "Thank you." "I didn't mean it as a compliment." Patricia moved closer. "You manipulated that situation beautifully, made yourself look like a victim, made us look incompetent, and charmed the client all at once." I answered their questions. "You played a game, and you think you've won." Patricia's voice was soft, deadly. "But here's what you don't understand, young lady. This firm isn't a democracy. It isn't a meritocracy. It's a business built on relationships, reputation, and respect for hierarchy. You have none of those things." "I have the respect of the client," Elena said. "For now, but clients come and go. The board remains." Patricia stepped even closer, close enough that Elena could smell her perfume. Expensive, floral, cloying. "You may have impressed Dalton Industries. You may have made James look foolish, but you've also made an enemy of every person in this room. And we have very long memories." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Patricia turned to leave, then paused. "You won't last 6 months here, Ms. Varelli. One way or another, we'll find grounds to terminate you. And when we do, no one will hire you. We'll make sure of it." She swept out, the other board members following. James Whitmore was the last to leave. He stopped at the door, looked back at Elena. "You should have taken the sick day," he said quietly. Then he was gone. Elena stood alone in conference room A, surrounded by the detritus of her presentation. Empty water glasses, scattered papers, the projector still humming. She'd won. And she'd lost. Because Patricia was right. The client might be pleased, but the board wanted blood. Her blood specifically. She was good at this job, better than most of the people trying to destroy her. But in the end, that might not matter. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. "How did it go?" Elena stared at the message, started to type a response, deleted it, tried again. "I survived. Barely." The response came back immediately. "We need to talk. Tonight. Same place." She should say no. Should put distance between herself and Adrian before their association cost her what little standing she had left. Instead, she typed 9 p.m. Xian. Vanguard Bar was quieter on a Tuesday night. Adrian sat in the same spot, but this time he wasn't alone. Lillian Frost sat beside him, nursing a martini, looking uncomfortable and defiant in equal measure. Elena stopped short. "What is this?" "An alliance," Lillian said. She gestured to the empty stool. "Sit down. We have a proposition." Elena looked at Adrian. He nodded. She sat. Lillian took a long sip of her martini, then set it down with precision. I'm going to be direct. The board is going to destroy you. They're going to make your life hell until you quit, or until they manufacture grounds to fire you. You know this. I'm aware. And Adrian's career in corporate law is effectively over. No major firm will touch him after what happened. He knows this. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Which brings us to me, Lillian continued. I'm a socialite with more money than purpose and a suddenly urgent need to prove I'm more than decorative. She pulled out a folder, slid it across the bar. I want to fund a new firm, international development law, focus on sustainable practices and labor rights. Small operation, high impact. The kind of work that actually matters instead of just making rich people richer. Elena opened the folder. Inside, a business proposal, funding commitments, projected budgets. It looked professional, thorough, real. You're serious, Elena said. I'm always serious. I'm just usually serious about stupid things. Lillian's smile was self-deprecating. Adrian would run operations. You'd run casework. I'd provide funding and use my connections to bring in clients who actually want to do good instead of just looking good. Why me? Elena asked. You hate me. I did hate you, because you represented everything I wasn't. Competent, purposeful, self-made. Lillian's voice went quiet. But watching you at that gala, watching you refuse to shrink, I realized I'd spent my whole life making myself smaller to fit into spaces that didn't deserve me. You don't do that, and I'm tired of being the person who does. Elena looked at Adrian. You're on board with this? I am. His voice was steady. I'm done fighting from inside broken systems. I want to build something new. Something that actually operates on the principles I claim to value. And if it fails, then we fail trying to do something that matters instead of succeeding at perpetuating harm. He paused. Victoria Huang is interested, by the way. She'd come on as an advisor if we move forward. Elena's heart was pounding. This was insane. A brand new firm funded by a socialite seeking redemption, run by a disgraced CEO, and a junior consultant with enemies in high places. It was also everything she'd wanted when she'd walked into that gala in a crimson dress. I need time to think, she said. You have until Friday, Lillian said. After that, I'm moving forward with or without you, but it would be better with you. Elena closed the folder. I'll let you know. She left before they could argue, stepped out into the cold night air, her mind spinning. Stay at Cade and Vestry. Fight a losing battle against people who wanted her gone, do work that didn't matter, survive until they found a way to break her. Or jump ship, join Adrian and Lillian in building something new, risk everything on a venture that might implode before it ever launched. Her phone buzzed. Email from James Whitmore. Subject: Board Review. Friday, 9 a.m. Ms. Varelli, the board has requested a comprehensive review of your performance and conduct. Please be prepared to answer questions regarding your contract status and future with the firm. This is a mandatory meeting. Failure to attend will be considered grounds for immediate termination. JWW. Elena read it twice. They weren't even pretending anymore. This was an execution, scheduled and formal. She had 3 days. 3 days to decide whether to show up and fight for a position in a firm that wanted her gone, or to walk away and bet everything on an untested alternative. She looked up at the Manhattan skyline, all those lit windows, all those people working late, grinding away at careers that might or might not mean anything. For 7 years, she'd been one of them. Safe, invisible, surviving. The viral video had destroyed that safety. Adrian's stand had destroyed her invisibility. Now she was exposed, visible, vulnerable. And she had to decide who she wanted to be. Elena pulled out her phone, opened a new message, typed 5 words, and hit send. Boss, to be continued. The 5 words Elena had typed glowed on her phone screen like a verdict. I'm in. Let's do this. She'd sent it to Adrian. No hesitation, no second guessing, because the board review on Friday wasn't a review. It was a public execution, and she'd be damned if she'd give them the satisfaction of watching her beg. His response came back within seconds. Meet me at my apartment tomorrow morning. 7 a.m. We have work to do. Elena stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the reply. Tomorrow was Wednesday. The board meeting was Friday. That gave them 48 hours to build something from nothing, to transform rage and desperation into an actual functioning firm. It was insane. She typed back, "I'll be there." Then she opened a new message to James Whitmore. Her fingers moved before her brain could stop them. "Mr. Whitmore, I will not be attending Friday's board review. Effective immediately, I resign from Cade and Vestry. My final day will be Thursday. Please have my exit paperwork ready." She hit send before the fear could paralyze her. The phone slipped from her hands onto the bench. Elena sat there on a freezing Tuesday night in Manhattan, watching her breath fog in the air, and felt something crack open inside her chest, not breaking, but opening. Like a door she'd kept locked for 7 years had finally been kicked down. She was free. She was also completely fucked. Her phone buzzed. James's response was immediate and cold. "Your resignation is accepted. Security will escort you from the building tomorrow at 5 p.m. Do not access firm files or contact clients. Violation will result in legal action. No pleasantries, no acknowledgement of 7 years of service, just the corporate equivalent of a middle finger." Elena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that startled a passing couple. They gave her a wide berth, probably assuming she was drunk or unstable. They weren't entirely wrong. Adrian's apartment was in the West Village, a fourth-floor walk-up that probably cost more per month than Elena made in 6. She arrived at 6:55 a.m., her laptop bag slung over her shoulder, coffee in hand, running on 3 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. He answered on the first knock, looking like he'd been up all night. His hair was disheveled, his shirt untucked, and there were papers scattered across every surface of the living room like the aftermath of an explosion.
"You look like hell," Elena said. "You look worse." He stepped aside to let her in. "Lillian's on her way. She's bringing the funding agreements and incorporation papers." The apartment was beautiful. Exposed brick, hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows that let in weak morning light. But it was also clearly in the middle of being packed up. Boxes lined the walls, half filled with books and files. "You're moving," Elena said.
"Can't afford this place without a CEO salary." Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact. "I'm subletting a studio in Brooklyn starting next month." The casual way he said it, like losing a lifetime of accumulated wealth and status was just an inconvenience, made Elena's chest tighten. "Adrian, don't." He cut her off gently. "I made my choice. Same as you." Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. Lillian entered in a cloud of expensive perfume and nervous energy, carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe.
"I brought everything," Lillian said without preamble. She dumped the portfolio on the dining table, which was already covered in legal documents. Incorporation papers for a New York LLC, operating agreement, banking information, initial funding commitment of $500,000. Elena choked on her coffee. 500?
"It's a starting point," Lillian said. "My accountant thinks I'm having a breakdown. My mother thinks I'm being rebellious. My therapist thinks this is the healthiest thing I've done in years." She pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. "Let's build something before I lose my nerve." For the next 6 hours, they worked. Adrian drafted operating procedures and client intake protocols. Lillian navigated incorporation paperwork and set up business banking. Elena built a case intake system and started reaching out to contacts from her NGO days, people who might need legal services that actually gave a damn about doing good. By noon, they had a name, Vestry International, a deliberate echo of what they'd left behind but stripped of the Cade. By 2 p.m., they had a website skeleton and a mission statement that didn't make Elena want to vomit. By 4 p.m., Elena had to leave to face her final hour at Cade and Vestry. "You sure about this?" Adrian asked as she gathered her things. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's becoming a pattern with you." Elena smiled grimly. "Better than the alternative." The security escort was waiting when Elena arrived at Cade and Vestry at 4:45 p.m. A young guard named Marcus, not the partner, a different Marcus, who looked embarrassed to be there. "Ms. Varelli," he said quietly, "I need to accompany you while you collect your personal items." I know the drill. Her office, the tiny cube she'd occupied for 7 years, looked smaller than she remembered. There wasn't much to pack, A photo of her grandmother, a coffee mug from Columbia Law, a succulent plant that had somehow survived her neglect. She was placing the plant in a cardboard box when Carla from accounting appeared in the doorway. "So you're really leaving," Carla said. "Looks like it." "Good." Carla's voice was fierce. "This place doesn't deserve you. It never did." Elena's throat tightened. "Thanks." "No, thank you. For showing the rest of us what having a spine looks like." Carla glanced at the security guard, then back to Elena. "Half the junior staff is updating their resumes because of you. You made them realize they don't have to accept being treated like shit." "I didn't do anything. You did everything." Carla pulled an envelope from her jacket. "This is from the paralegals, the junior associates, the assistants, everyone the partners pretend doesn't exist. We took up a collection." Elena opened the envelope. Inside, a card signed by at least 30 people and a check for $2,000. "We know you're starting something new," Carla said. "We wanted to help." Elena couldn't speak. The words stuck in her throat like broken glass. "You're going to make them regret this," Carla continued. "All of them. The board, the partners, everyone who thought you were disposable. You're going to build something that matters, and they're going to watch you do it." "I hope you're right." "I am." Carla hugged her quickly, fiercely. "Now get the hell out of here before I start crying." Elena finished packing. The security guard, Marcus, escorted her to the elevator, then down to the lobby, then out onto the street. The whole walk, he didn't say a word. But when they reached the door, he stopped. "For what it's worth, Ms. Varelli," he said quietly, "everyone in building services is rooting for you. We saw what happened. We know what they did." Then he went back inside, leaving Elena standing on the sidewalk with a cardboard box and a check and the crushing weight of other people's expectations. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. "Victoria just called. She wants a meeting tomorrow. Says she has a proposition." Elena's pulse quickened. Victoria Huang didn't waste time on propositions that didn't matter. She typed back, "When and where?" Her office. 10 a.m. She asked for all three of us. Elena looked up at the Cade and Vestry building, all that glass and steel and accumulated cruelty. 7 years of her life had disappeared into that structure. 7 years of being invisible, being overlooked, being less than. Never again. She turned and walked away without looking back. Victoria Huang's office occupied the top floor of a building in the financial district, with views that made Adrian's apartment look pedestrian. The receptionist, a young man with perfect posture and a British accent, led them to a conference room where Victoria waited, flanked by 2 assistants and a stack of documents that looked ominous. "Adrian, Lillian, Elena." Victoria's greeting was brisk. "Thank you for coming on short notice. Please sit." They sat. Victoria steepled her fingers, studying them like specimens under glass. "I've been following your situation with great interest. The viral video, the board upheaval, Adrian's termination, Elena's resignation." She paused. "Quite the spectacle." "We aim to entertain," Lillian said dryly. Victoria's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Indeed. Which brings me to why you're here. I'm prepared to make a significant investment in Vestry International." The room went very quiet. "How significant?" Adrian asked carefully. $2 million, initial capital, with provisions for additional funding based on performance milestones. Victoria slid a folder across the table. "In exchange, I want 20% equity and a seat on your advisory board." Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table to hide it. $2 million would give them runway, resources, legitimacy. It would transform them from a desperate gamble into a real firm. "What's the catch?" Elena asked. "Smart question." Victoria's gaze sharpened. "The catch is that I have conditions. First, you take on pro bono work. At least 30% of your caseload must be for organizations or individuals who can't afford traditional legal fees. Second, you maintain transparent accounting and ethical standards that I can audit at any time. Third, you don't become what you left behind." "Meaning?" Adrian asked. "Meaning you build a firm that actually values competence over pedigree, that promotes based on merit, that doesn't tolerate the kind of toxic culture that destroyed your previous workplace." Victoria leaned forward. "I'm not interested in funding another corporate law factory. I want to invest in something that matters." Lillian was reading through the contract, her expression unreadable. These terms are generous, unusually generous.
I'm a generous person when I believe in what I'm investing in. Victoria's voice was matter-of-fact.
The question is whether you believe in it enough to meet my standards. Adrian and Elena exchanged glances. Then Lillian looked up from the contract. We're in, Lillian said. Excellent. Victoria stood, extending her hand. I'll have my lawyers finalize the paperwork. We can sign by end of week. They shook hands all around. As they turned to leave, Victoria called out, Elena, a word, please. Adrian and Lillian hesitated, but Elena waved them on. The door closed behind them. Victoria moved to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. You're taking a tremendous risk, you know, starting a firm from scratch, with no client base, no track record. I know. And you're doing it with a disgraced CEO and a socialite who's never worked a day in her life. They're better than you're giving them credit for. Perhaps. Victoria turned to face her. But I'm not investing in them, Elena. I'm investing in you. You're the one with the vision, the expertise, the drive. Without you, this venture fails. The weight of that statement pressed down like atmosphere. No pressure or anything. Pressure is how diamonds form. Victoria's expression was unreadable. I pulled my investment from Cade Investry because they wasted talent. I'm investing in you because I believe you won't. Don't prove me wrong. I'll try not to. Trying isn't sufficient. Succeed. Victoria handed her another folder, thinner than the first. This is a list of potential clients, organizations I've worked with who need legal representation. Use my name as a reference. Build your practice. Elena took the folder with numb fingers. Why are you doing this? Because 30 years ago, I was you, young, brilliant, overlooked. I built my fortune from nothing, and I spent decades proving I belonged in rooms that didn't want me. Victoria's voice went quiet. I see myself in you, Elena. The version of me who still believes systems can change. I want to see if you're right. Thursday night, Elena sat in her apartment with the folder Victoria had given her, calling potential clients. By midnight, she'd secured 3 consultations for the following week. Small cases, a nonprofit needing contract review, an advocacy group facing regulatory challenges, a startup with immigration questions, but real work, billable work. By 2 a.m., she'd drafted intake forms and conflict check procedures. By 4 a.m., she fell asleep at her kitchen table, her laptop still open, the cursor blinking on an unfinished sentence. Friday morning arrived with brutal efficiency. The board meeting at Cade Investry would be starting soon, without her. James Whitmore would probably use her absence to further discredit her, to paint her resignation as proof of guilt or inadequacy. Elena didn't care. She was too busy building something new to worry about defending herself in a system designed to break her. Her phone rang at 9:15 a.m. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Varelli? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. This is Jennifer Santos from the New York State Bar Association. I'm calling regarding a complaint filed against you. Elena's stomach dropped. What complaint? A formal grievance alleging professional misconduct, breach of client confidentiality, and misuse of privileged information during your employment at Cade Investry. Papers rustled in the background. The complaint was filed yesterday by the firm's general counsel. You'll need to respond within 30 days or face disciplinary proceedings. The room tilted. Elena gripped the edge of her table. You'll receive the full complaint via certified mail. I'm required to inform you that this is a serious matter. If substantiated, the charges could result in suspension or disbarment. A pause. Do you have legal representation? Yes, I'll get representation. Good. Expect the documents within the week. Have a good day, Ms. Varelli. The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, her phone still pressed to her ear, her mind racing. A bar complaint, filed by Cade Investry, alleging misconduct serious enough to destroy her legal career before it even started. This wasn't just revenge. This was annihilation. Her phone rang again. Adrian this time. Did you get a call from the Bar Association? His voice was tight. You too? 10 minutes ago. Complaint alleging I misused my position as CEO to promote you without proper vetting, creating conflicts of interest, exposing the firm to liability. He laughed, but it was hollow. They're coming after both of us. This is Patricia Drummond. Elena's voice shook with rage. She said she'd make sure no one would hire me. She meant it. It's worse than that. I just got off the phone with 3 potential clients Victoria referred us to. All 3 canceled their consultations, said they'd been contacted by someone at Cade and Vestry, warning them that we were under investigation for ethical violations. Elena felt the floor drop out from under her. They're sabotaging us. They're destroying us before we even start. Adrian's breath came heavy through the phone. Victoria's calling an emergency meeting. 1 hour. Her office. I'll be there. Elena hung up and immediately called Lillian. I already know, Lillian said before Elena could speak. My accountant just informed me that my trust fund administrators are concerned about my recent investment decisions. They're threatening to freeze my access pending a competency evaluation. What? Apparently my mother called them. Suggested I'm having a mental health crisis and making reckless financial choices. Lillian's laugh was bitter. She's using my own money against me, or trying to. Can she do that? The trust is structured with safeguards against impulsive decisions during periods of emotional distress, which is code for we can control you whenever we want. Papers rustled. I'm fighting it, but it could take weeks to resolve, which means the $500,000 I promised might not be accessible. Elena closed her eyes. In less than an hour, they'd lost their clients, their credibility, and potentially their funding. Cade and Vestry wasn't just firing back. They were carpet bombing. Victoria's conference room felt different this time. Smaller, darker, like the walls were closing in. She stood at the window, her back to them, radiating controlled fury. Explain, she said without turning around. Adrian laid out the situation. The bar complaints, the poisoned referrals, Lillian's frozen trust fund. When he finished, Victoria turned slowly. So in less than 24 hours, Cade and Vestry has effectively destroyed your firm before it launched. Impressive. Her voice was ice. And you didn't see this coming? We knew they'd be angry, Elena said. We didn't think they'd go this far. Then you're naive. Victoria moved to the table, braced her hands on it. Patricia Drummond has spent 40 years building power in this city. You humiliated her firm publicly, cost them an investment, and walked away to start a competitor. Did you really think she'd just let that slide? We thought we could outwork it, Adrian said quietly. Outwork a coordinated campaign to destroy your professional reputations? Outwork bar complaints that could take months to resolve and cost thousands in legal fees you don't have? Victoria's gaze was sharp enough to cut. This isn't a competition, Adrian. It's warfare. And you brought a knife to a gunfight. Lillian spoke up, her voice steady despite the tremor Elena could see in her hands. So what do we do? You have 2 options. Victoria straightened. First, fight. Hire lawyers to defend against the bar complaints, counter the sabotage. Build your practice from scratch while under investigation. It will be expensive, exhausting, and you'll probably lose. And the second option? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Fold. Except that you can't win. Adrian and Elena, you find jobs in smaller firms outside New York where Cade and Vestry's influence doesn't reach. Lillian, you make peace with your mother and go back to being decorative. Victoria's expression was carefully neutral. No shame in it. Sometimes the smart move is knowing when you're beaten. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena felt something crack inside her, not hope exactly, but the last shred of belief that doing the right thing would somehow work out. She'd left Cade and Vestry for this, had convinced Adrian and Lillian to risk everything for this, and now it was imploding before it even started. There has to be another way, she said. There isn't. Victoria's voice was almost gentle. I've seen this play out before. The powerful always win because they have resources you don't. Money, connections, time. They can afford to wait you out, to bleed you dry through legal fees and lost opportunities. You can't. So we just give up? Lillian's voice cracked. Let them win? I'm saying you need to be realistic about your chances. Adrian stood abruptly, his chair scraping against floor. I didn't lose my career to be realistic. I lost it because I was tired of being complicit in a system that protects bullies and punishes integrity. Noble sentiment, won't pay your bills. Victoria crossed her arms. I admire what you're trying to do, but admiration doesn't change the math. Elena's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, she looked. Email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject line, "You need to see this." She opened it. Inside, a PDF document. Legal letterhead from Cade and Vestry, dated 3 months ago. It was an internal memo from Patricia Drummond to the board of directors. Elena's hand started shaking as she read. The memo detailed a strategic plan to phase out underperforming personnel through a campaign of managed attrition. It listed names, junior staff, paralegals, assistants, and specific tactics for making their work environments hostile enough that they'd quit voluntarily. Elena's name was on the list, so was Carla's, and at least a dozen others. But it got worse. The memo outlined how to manufacture performance issues for targeted employees, how to exclude them from projects, how to ensure their work went uncredited, how to create a paper trail of concerns that could justify eventual termination. It was a blueprint for systematic harassment, and it was signed by Patricia Drummond, James Whitmore, Marcus Chen, and 3 other senior partners. "Elena?" Adrian's voice seemed to come from far away. "What is it?" She handed him the phone without speaking. His face went white as he read. Then he passed it to Lillian, who inhaled sharply. "Where did you get this?" Victoria asked, suddenly focused. "Someone emailed it to me. Anonymous sender." "Is it real?" Elena thought about 7 years of being overlooked, of watching her work get buried, of seeing talented people quietly disappear from the firm, replaced by people with the right credentials and the right families. "Yes," she said, "it's real." Victoria took the phone, read the document carefully. Her expression remained neutral, but something shifted behind her eyes. "This is explosive," she said quietly. "If this got out, it would destroy them," Adrian finished. "Prove systematic discrimination, expose their whole operation. It would also be incredibly risky to leak." Victoria handed the phone back. "They'll claim it's fabricated, sue for defamation, come after you with everything they have." "They're already coming after us with everything they have," Elena said. The rage that had been building in her chest for 7 years was reaching critical mass. "At least this way we hit back." "Hitting back could make things worse." "How?" Lillian's voice was sharp. "They've frozen my money, filed bar complaints, poisoned our client base. What's worse than that? Them using their resources to bury you completely." Victoria's tone was serious. "You leak this, they'll know it came from you. They'll escalate. And they have deeper pockets for the legal battle that follows." "So we do nothing?" Elena stood, her whole body trembling. "We just let them keep destroying people?" "I'm saying you need to be smart about this." Victoria met her eyes. "Going to war requires ammunition, strategy, and resources. Right now you have one leaked document from an anonymous source. That's not enough." "Then what is?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, dialed a number. "Mark?" "Victoria Huang. I need you to look into something. Cade and Vestry's HR practices, last 5 years. Personnel turnover, discrimination complaints, settlement agreements." She paused, listening. "Yes, I know it's sensitive. That's why I'm calling you. How fast can you work?" She hung up. "That was a forensic accountant who specializes in employment litigation," Victoria said. "If there's a pattern of discrimination at Cade and Vestry, he'll find it. But it will take time." "How much time?" Adrian asked. "Weeks? Maybe months." Victoria looked at each of them in turn. "Which means you need to decide. Do you want justice or do you want revenge? Because you probably can't have both." Elena thought about Carla and the envelope full of hope from people who'd believed in her. Thought about the 70,000 children who'd learned to read because she'd refused to accept that some problems were too big to solve. Thought about her grandmother who'd cleaned houses and raised 3 kids and never once apologized for taking up space. "I want accountability," Elena said. "I want them to face consequences for what they've done. Not just to me, to everyone they've buried." "That's a long game," Victoria warned. "While you're playing it, they're destroying you in the short term." "Then we survive the short term." Elena's voice was steady now. "We defend against the bar complaints. We rebuild the client base. We keep Vestry International alive long enough to make them pay." Adrian nodded slowly. "I'm in." Lillian took a deep breath. "Me too." Victoria studied them for a long moment, then Then she smiled, sharp, dangerous, approving. "All right," she said. "Let's go to war." The next 3 weeks were hell. Elena hired a lawyer to defend against the bar complaint, a woman named Ruth Martinez who cost $300 an hour and had the personality of a judicial bulldog. Ruth tore through the allegations, built a defense, filed countermotions that accused Cade and Vestry of filing in bad faith. Adrian did the same, hiring his own counsel, burning through savings he didn't have. Lillian fought her trust administrators in court, arguing that investing in a legitimate business venture didn't constitute mental incompetence. The case dragged. Meanwhile, they worked. Elena cold-called every contact from her NGO days. Adrian leveraged relationships from his years as CEO, carefully avoiding anyone with ties to Cade and Vestry. Lillian used her social connections, the ones who hadn't abandoned her after the gala, to drum up interest. By the end of week 1, they had 2 clients. Small matters, small fees, but it was something. By the end of week 2, Ruth had gotten a hearing scheduled for the bar complaint. It wouldn't resolve the matter, but it was movement. By the end of week 3, Victoria's forensic accountant delivered his preliminary report. They met in Victoria's office to review it. The accountant, Mark Chen, no relation to Marcus, was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the demeanor of someone who found spreadsheets sexually arousing. "Cade and Vestry has a problem," Mark said without preamble. He pulled up a presentation on the conference room screen. Over the last 5 years, employee turnover in non-partner positions has been 340% higher than industry average. Exit interviews, the few that exist, cite hostile work environment and lack of advancement opportunities as primary reasons for departure. He clicked to the next slide. 17 formal discrimination complaints have been filed with the EEOC in the past 3 years. All 17 were settled confidentially with non-disclosure agreements. Settlement amounts total $2.3 million. Adrian whistled low. "They've been paying people off extensively, and that's just what I could find in public records. There are likely more internal complaints that never made it to formal filing." Mark pulled up another slide, a demographic breakdown. Of the 73 people who've left the firm in the past 5 years, 68 were women, people of color, or first-generation professionals. Only 5 were white men from legacy families. "That's a pattern," Elena said. "It's a goddamn smoking gun," Ruth Martinez interjected. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner, taking notes. "Combined with that internal memo, you've got grounds for a massive lawsuit. Class action, potentially." "Which would take years to litigate," Victoria pointed out. "Years we'd spend exposing them," Adrian said. "Discovery alone would destroy their reputation." Mark cleared his throat. "There's more. I found irregularities in their client billing. Several instances of overbilling, phantom hours, charges for work that was never performed. Nothing egregious enough to trigger audits on its own, but in aggregate, it's fraud," Lillian finished. "Potential fraud," Mark corrected. "Would need to be investigated by the state bar or federal authorities." Elena felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just ammunition. This was an arsenal. "How do we use this?" she asked. Ruth leaned forward. "Carefully. If you go public with these findings, Cade and Vestry will sue for defamation, breach of confidentiality, anything they can think of. You need to approach this through proper channels." "Meaning?" "Meaning you file a formal complaint with the EEOC alleging systematic discrimination. You submit Mark's findings to the state bar regarding billing irregularities. You let the regulatory agencies do their job." Ruth's expression was serious. "It's slower than going to the press, but it's defensible. And in the meantime, they keep destroying us," Adrian said. Good. "In the meantime, you survive." Victoria's voice was firm. "You build your firm. You win your bar complaint hearings. You create something good enough that when Cade and Vestry finally falls, you're standing on solid ground." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to take the memo and the data and blast it across every news outlet in New York. Wanted to watch Patricia Drummond and James Whitmore and Marcus Chen face consequences immediately. But Victoria was right. Revenge was fast. Justice was slow. And if they were going to do this, they needed to do it right. "Okay," Elena said. "We file formally. Go through channels. Play by the rules they're supposed to follow." "While they play dirty," Lillian added. While they play dirty, Elena agreed. But we document everything. Every sabotage attempt, every poisoned referral, every piece of retaliation. We build a case so airtight they can't lie their way out. Adrian nodded. How long until we can file? Ruth consulted her notes. I can have the EEOC complaint ready in a week. Mark will need another 2 weeks to finalize his billing analysis for the Bar Association. So, 3 weeks, give or take. 3 weeks, Elena repeated. 3 weeks of surviving, of fighting, of hoping they could hold together long enough to strike back. We can do 3 weeks, Adrian said. They didn't make it 3 weeks. 12 days later, Elena got a call from Ruth Martinez. The lawyer's voice was tight, controlled, radiating barely suppressed rage. We have a problem. Elena's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The bar complaint hearing. The investigator assigned to your case just recused himself. Why? Conflict of interest. Turns out his daughter works at Cade & Vestry, has for 6 years. This should have been flagged immediately, but somehow it wasn't. They engineered that. They knew he'd have to recuse and it would delay. It gets worse. The replacement investigator is Nathan Cross. The name hit like a fist. Nathan Cross was a legend in New York legal circles, and not in a good way. He was known for being thorough, skeptical, and deeply conservative in his interpretations of ethics violations. He disbarred more attorneys than any other investigator in the state. He hates me, Elena said numbly. I criticized one of his decisions in a law review article, called his reasoning outdated and discriminatory. I know, I read it. It was a good article. Ruth's voice was grim. But yeah, he's not going to be sympathetic, and there's nothing we can do about it. Investigator assignments are supposed to be random. Supposed to be. Supposed to be, Ruth agreed. This stinks of manipulation, but I can't prove it. Elena closed her eyes, pressing her palm against her forehead. What does this mean for the hearing? It means we're going in front of someone who already doesn't like you, representing a firm with resources to bury us in motions and delays. Best case scenario, this drags out another 6 months. Worst case, Cross recommends disciplinary action based on Cade & Vestry's allegations, and you're suspended pending full investigation. I can't practice law for 6 months? You can't practice law at all if you're suspended, which means Vestry International loses its only licensed attorney who can actually take cases. The walls were closing in. Elena could feel them, could feel the weight of Patricia Drummond's promise. We'll destroy you, becoming reality. There has to be something we can do, Elena said. There is. You can settle. Cade & Vestry's counsel reached out this morning with an offer. Elena's blood went cold. What offer? You withdraw your defense, accept a censure from the bar, non-public, just on your record. Agree not to file any complaints against Cade & Vestry or their partners. In exchange, they'll withdraw the complaint and you can keep practicing. That's not a settlement. That's surrender. It's survival, Ruth said quietly. Elena, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen what happens when attorneys go to war with powerful firms. They lose. Every time. If you take this deal, you get to keep your license. You get to build your firm. You move on. I move on by admitting guilt for things I didn't do, by letting them win. You move on by living to fight another day. There's no shame in that. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to put her fist through a wall, wanted to burn everything down and salt the earth behind her. Instead, she said, How long do I have to decide? They want an answer by Monday, 4 days. I'll call you back. Elena hung up and immediately called Adrian. He picked up on the first ring. Tell me you heard, she said. About Nathan Cross? Yeah, my investigator called an hour ago. Same situation, recusal, replacement with someone notoriously harsh. His voice was hollow. They got us both, Elena. Coordinated hits. They offered me a settlement. Silence. Me too, Adrian said finally. Withdraw defense, accept censure, never speak publicly about Cade & Vestry again. You gonna take it? Are you? Elena looked around her tiny apartment, at the laptop covered in case notes, at the files for the 2 clients they'd managed to sign, at the photo of her grandmother, who'd never once backed down from people who tried to make her small. No, she said. I'm not. Good.
Adrian's voice firmed. Neither am I. We fight. We'll probably lose. Probably, but at least we'll lose standing up. After they hung up, Elena sat in the gathering darkness, thinking about choices and consequences and the difference between being smart and being right. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. You should take the settlement. You can't win this fight. Her hands were shaking as she typed back, Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who's seen how this ends. They're more powerful than you think. They have resources you can't imagine. Take the deal before they destroy you completely. Elena stared at the message. Then she typed, If you're trying to scare me, it's working, but I'm not backing down. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then you're going to lose everything. Your license, your firm, your future. And for what? Pride? For accountability, Elena typed back. They hurt people. They've been hurting people for years. Someone has to stop them. That someone doesn't have to be you. Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The smart response was to block the number, ignore the warning, keep pushing forward. Instead, she typed, Why do you care? The response took longer this time. Because I was like you once. Idealistic, determined to fix broken systems. I fought people like Patricia Drummond. And I lost. 20 years later, I'm still paying the price. Who are you? No response. Elena waited for 5 minutes. Then 10. The unknown number stayed silent. Finally, she put the phone down and opened her laptop, pulled up the EEOC complaint Ruth had drafted, read through it carefully, marking changes, strengthening arguments. If she was going to fight, she was going to fight smart. If she was going to lose, she was going to lose leaving scars. Her phone rang. Lillian this time. Did you hear about the investigators? Lillian asked without preamble. Yeah. My trust fund hearing got postponed. Again. The judge had to recuse himself. Apparently he plays golf with my mother's attorney. Lillian's laugh was bitter. They're not even being subtle anymore. They're just using every lever of power they have. So what do we do? I don't know. Lillian's voice cracked. I'm running out of money, Elena. My personal accounts are nearly empty. I've been paying rent on our office space with credit cards. If we don't start billing real clients soon, we have 2 clients. 2 pro bono cases that pay nothing. We need actual revenue or we fold in a month. Elena closed her eyes. The walls were closing in from every direction. Bar complaints, sabotaged referrals, financial pressure, anonymous warnings. There's something else, Lillian said quietly. I got a call today. From my mother. What did she want? To offer me an out. She'll release my trust fund, drop the competency challenge, restore my allowance. All I have to do is walk away from Vestry International. What did you tell her? I told her to go to hell. Lillian's voice hardened. But Elena, I'm scared. What if we can't do this? What if they really are too powerful? Then we lose, Elena said. But we lose trying. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. After they hung up, Elena sat in her apartment and stared at the wall. The settlement offer, the anonymous warning, Lillian's crumbling finances, Adrian's bar complaint, her own hearing in front of an investigator who already hated her. Every rational voice in her head screamed to take the deal, to survive, to accept that some battles couldn't be won. But rationality hadn't gotten her here. Rage had. And the belief that people who hurt others should face consequences. Elena opened a new document, started typing. Dear Mr. Cross, I am writing to formally contest the bar complaint filed against me by Cade and Vestry. Not only do I deny all allegations, but I am prepared to present evidence of systematic misconduct by the complainant firm, including... She wrote for 3 hours. Built her defense, prepared for war. At midnight, her phone buzzed. Email from Ruth Martinez. Elena, I need you to call me. Now. Emergency. Elena's hands were shaking as she dialed. Ruth picked up on the first ring. Cade and Vestry just amended their complaint. They're now alleging you stole privileged client information before you resigned. They have emails, timestamped documents, testimony from IT about files you accessed. That's impossible. I know. But the evidence looks real. And if it's authenticated, this goes from a disciplinary matter to a potential criminal investigation for theft of trade secrets. The room spun.
They fabricated it, Elena said. They're manufacturing evidence. Probably, but proving that will be almost impossible. And in the meantime, you're facing disbarment and possible criminal charges. Ruth's voice was strained. Elena, you need to seriously consider the settlement before this gets worse. How can it get worse? They could file criminal charges tomorrow. Then you're not just fighting a bar complaint. You're fighting criminal prosecution. That's prison time if convicted. Elena couldn't breathe. The apartment felt too small, the air too thin. 7 years of work, of survival, of hoping things would get better. And it had led here. To a fabricated case, a rigged system, and a choice between surrender and destruction. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Final warning. Take the settlement. They will destroy you otherwise. This is not a bluff. Elena stared at the message, then at her laptop screen where her defiant response to Nathan Cross waited to be sent. 2 paths. Surrender. Accept censure. Abandon the fight. Watch Cade and Vestry continue hurting people while she rebuilt from nothing. Or fight, face disbarment, possible criminal charges, financial ruin, and the very real possibility of losing everything. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head. Never apologize for taking up space. Elena deleted the text from the unknown number, sent her email to Nathan Cross, and called Adrian. They just escalated to criminal allegations, she said when he answered. I know, got the same amendment an hour ago. His voice was steady. We're still fighting, right? We're still fighting. Good. Because I just did something possibly insane. What? I called the New York Times, told them I have evidence of systematic discrimination at a major law firm. They want to meet Monday. Elena's heart was pounding. Adrian, if we go public now, we're already being destroyed. Might as well make some noise on the way down. He paused. Unless you want to back out. I'd understand. Elena looked around her apartment, at 7 years of invisible work, at the photo of her grandmother, at the future she'd tried to build. I'm in, she said. Let's burn it all down. They hung up. Elena sat in the darkness, waiting for dawn, knowing that when Monday came, there would be no going back. They were committed now, to justice or ruin. Maybe both. Okay, Monday morning came with the weight of an execution. Elena stood outside the New York Times building at 7:45 a.m., her breath fogging in the February cold, her hands wrapped around a coffee she couldn't drink. Adrian was beside her, looking like he'd aged 5 years in a week, dark circles under his eyes, jaw tight enough to crack teeth. He held a messenger bag containing everything they'd compiled, Mark Chen's forensic report, the internal memo, documentation of 17 settled discrimination complaints. Last chance to back out, Adrian said quietly. Elena's stomach was a knot of acid and fear. You having second thoughts? Constant second thoughts. Third and fourth thoughts, too. He looked at her. But I'm still going in. Then so am I. They walked through the revolving doors into the lobby. The Times building was all glass and steel, modern and imposing, filled with people who told stories that toppled governments and destroyed careers. Elena had read the Times her entire life, had never imagined she'd be the story. The journalist who'd agreed to meet them, Marcus Webb, senior investigative reporter, waited in a conference room on the 8th floor. He was younger than Elena expected, maybe 40, with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of intense focus that made her feel like a specimen under examination. Mr. Cade? Miss Varelli. He shook their hands. His grip was firm, assessing. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. They sat. Marcus pulled out a recorder, set it on the table between them. Before we start, I need to be clear about how this works. Everything you tell me will be investigated and verified. If I can't corroborate your allegations, I can't print them. Understood? Understood, Adrian said. Good. Now. Marcus leaned back in his chair. You told me on the phone you have evidence of systematic discrimination at Cade and Vestry. Walk me through it. For the next 2 hours, they did. Adrian explained the culture of exclusion, the unwritten rules about who got promoted and who got buried. Elena detailed her 7 years of invisible work, the gala that exposed everything, the board's response. They showed Marcus the internal memo from Patricia Drummond, the blueprint for managed attrition. Marcus read it without expression. Where did you get this? Anonymous source, Elena said. Can you verify its authenticity? The signatures match samples from other Cade and Vestry documents. The email metadata checks out. Mark Chen, the forensic accountant who worked with us, confirmed the financial data referenced in the memo aligns with actual firm expenditures. Elena pulled out another folder. We also have this. She laid out Mark's full report. The turnover statistics, the settlement patterns, the demographic breakdown showing a clear pattern of forcing out women and people of color. Marcus studied it carefully, taking notes. This is substantial, but Cade and Vestry will claim it's all fabricated. They'll sue for defamation. Let them, Adrian said. Discovery will prove we're telling the truth. Discovery takes years. In the meantime, they'll destroy your credibility. Marcus looked at them over his glasses. Are you prepared for that? Elena thought about the bar complaint, the criminal allegations, the settlement offer she'd rejected. They're already destroying us. At least this way people will know why. Marcus made another note. Then he set down his pen and looked at them directly. I'm going to be honest with you. This is a good story. Strong documentation, clear pattern of misconduct, David versus Goliath narrative. But it's also risky. Cade and Vestry has powerful friends, politicians, judges, media executives. They'll fight back hard. We know, Elena said. Do you? Because I've seen what happens when people go after powerful institutions. Even when they win, they lose. Their careers never recover. They spend years in litigation. Some of them end up broken. He paused. I need to know you understand what you're signing up for. Elena met his gaze. She could feel Adrian beside her, tense and ready, could feel the weight of 7 years pressing down on her shoulders, could hear her grandmother's voice, never apologize for taking up space. I understand, she said, and I'm doing it anyway. Marcus studied her for another long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, I'll need time to verify everything, interview other sources, get responses from Cade and Vestry. This won't publish immediately. How long? Adrian asked. 2 weeks? Maybe 3. Marcus started gathering his notes. In the meantime, don't talk to anyone else about this. Don't post on social media. Don't give Cade and Vestry any warning. What if they find out we're talking to you? Then they'll try to kill the story before it runs, which is why you need to be careful. He stood, extending his hand. Thank you for bringing this to me. If it checks out, this could be big. They shook hands again. As Elena turned to leave, Marcus called out. Miss Varelli? She looked back. That video from the gala, I watched it probably 20 times while researching this meeting. You know what struck me? What? You didn't look scared. You looked angry. He smiled slightly. Good. You're going to need that. They walked out of the Times building into weak morning sunlight. Elena's whole body was shaking, not from cold, but from the adrenaline crash of having just lit a fuse they couldn't extinguish. We really did it, Adrian said quietly. Yeah. No going back now. No. They stood on the sidewalk, 2 people who'd just committed professional suicide together, and Elena felt something shift in her chest. Not hope. She wasn't naive enough for hope, but something close. Purpose, maybe. Or just the grim satisfaction of knowing they'd landed a hit. Her phone rang. Ruth Martinez. Tell me you didn't do anything stupid this weekend, Ruth said. Elena closed her eyes. Define stupid. Elena, what did you do? We met with the New York Times. Gave them everything we have on Cade and Vestry. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ. Ruth, do you have any idea what you've just done? The Times will contact Cade and Vestry for comment. Cade and Vestry will know the story is coming. They'll have time to prepare, to lawyer up, to come after you even harder than they already are. I know. Do you? Because your bar hearing is in 6 days. 6 days, Elena, and you just gave Nathan Cross every reason to throw the book at you. I couldn't wait anymore. They were destroying us one piece at a time. At least this way, you've escalated to mutual destruction. Ruth's voice was tight. I can't defend you if you keep making my job impossible. Then don't defend me. I'll represent myself. That's the stupidest thing I've heard all day, and that's saying something. Ruth took a breath. Look, I get it. You're angry. You want them to pay. But you're playing into their hands. They want you to be reckless. They want you to look unstable and vindictive, and you're giving them exactly that. Elena felt the words land like punches. Because Ruth was right, she was being reckless. She was letting rage drive her decisions instead of strategy. But strategy had gotten her nowhere. 7 years of being strategic had kept her invisible. I can't be careful anymore, Elena said quietly. Careful means they win. Reckless means you lose everything. I've already lost everything. Ruth was quiet for a moment. The hearing is Friday at 10 a.m. Be there. Be prepared. And for God's sake, don't do anything else stupid between now and then. She hung up. Adrian was watching her. Bad? She thinks we're idiots. She's not wrong. He checked his phone, his expression darkening. I just got an email from my lawyer. Cade and Vestry amended their complaint again. Now they're alleging I embezzled firm funds to finance Vestry International. Elena's stomach dropped. That's insane. It's also completely fabricated. But they have documentation, falsified accounting records showing transfers from firm accounts to my personal account, then to our business account. His hands were shaking. They're not just trying to destroy my reputation, they're trying to put me in prison. We need to tell Marcus Webb. This proves they're manufacturing evidence, which we can't prove without discovery, which takes months. Adrian's jaw was tight. Ruth's right. We're in over our heads. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him they could fight this, but the walls were closing in from every direction and she was running out of oxygen. Her phone buzzed. Text from Lillian. Emergency. My apartment. Now. Lillian's apartment was in the Upper East Side, a pre-war building with a doorman who looked at Elena and Adrian like they were there to steal the silverware. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was silent, tense. Lillian opened the door before they could knock. She looked worse than Elena had ever seen her, hair disheveled, makeup smeared, still in yesterday's clothes. They came for my mother, Lillian said without preamble. Who did? The press. Some blogger got wind of my trust fund case, wrote a piece about how I'm being financially abused by my own family. She laughed, but it was broken. My mother called me this morning, screaming, said I've humiliated her, destroyed our family's reputation, that she'll never forgive me. Lillian's hands were shaking as she poured herself a drink. Vodka, straight, at 11 in the morning. I thought I was ready for this, she continued. Thought I could handle being disowned. But hearing her voice, hearing how much she hates me. She downed the vodka in one swallow. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Elena moved closer, took the glass from Lillian's hand before she could pour another. Yes, you can. How do you know? Because you're still here. Because you haven't walked away. Elena set the glass down. Your mother's trying to break you. Don't let her. What if she's right? What if this is all a mistake? Then it's our mistake to make. Adrian's voice was firm. We chose this, Lillian, together. We knew it would be hard. I didn't know it would hurt this much. Lillian's voice cracked. I thought cutting toxic people out of your life was supposed to feel liberating. Instead, it just feels like bleeding. Elena understood that. God, she understood that. Because walking away from Cade and Vestry hadn't felt like freedom. It had felt like amputation. Necessary, but agonizing. It gets better, Elena said, not sure if she believed it. Does it? I don't know, but we'll find out together. Lillian looked at her for a long moment, then nodded, wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. Okay, she said. Okay, what's our next move? We survive until the Times story runs, Adrian said. We defend against the bar complaints. We keep Vestry International alive. That's not a plan. That's a prayer. Right now, it's all we have. The week that followed was a countdown to catastrophe. Tuesday. Elena received formal notice that Nathan Cross had scheduled her bar hearing for Friday at 10 a.m. The allegations had expanded again. Now Caden Vestry was claiming she'd accessed client files after her resignation, violating confidentiality agreements, and potentially committing criminal theft. Wednesday. Adrian's lawyer called with worse news. The Manhattan DA's office had opened a preliminary investigation into the embezzlement allegations. No charges filed yet, but the investigation was active. Thursday. Victoria Huang requested an emergency meeting. When they arrived at her office, she looked grave. I'm pulling my investment, Victoria said without preamble. The words hit like a physical blow. You're what? Lillian's voice was faint. I can't in good conscience invest in a firm whose principals are under criminal investigation. My fiduciary duty to my other investors won't allow it. Victoria's expression was pained. I believe in what you're trying to do, but I can't afford the liability. Victoria, please, Adrian started. I'm sorry. The decision is final. She slid papers across the desk. I'll help you wind down operations. I can provide bridge funding for another month to give you time to... We're not winding down, Elena interrupted. Victoria looked at her. Elena, without my investment, you can't survive. You have no revenue, mounting legal bills, and investigations that could lead to criminal charges. It's over. It's not over until we say it's over. That's admirable defiance. It's also delusional. Victoria's voice was gentle but firm. I've seen this play out before. Cade Investry has more resources, more connections, more time. They will outlast you, and when they do, you'll have nothing left. Then we'll have nothing, Elena said, but at least we'll have tried. Victoria studied her for a long moment. Then she stood, extended her hand. I genuinely hope you prove me wrong, but I can't be part of this anymore. They shook hands, walked out of Victoria's office for the last time. In the elevator down, nobody spoke. The numbers descended, 20, 15, 10, 5, and Elena felt each floor like a countdown to the end. When they hit the lobby, Adrian's phone rang. He looked at the screen, his face going pale. It's Marcus Webb. He answered on speaker. Mr. Cade, I need to inform you that Cade Investry has gotten wind of our story. Their legal counsel contacted my editor this morning with a preemptive threat of litigation if we publish anything containing unverified allegations. Elena's heart sank. Are you killing the story? No, but we need to be extremely careful about what we print. Every fact needs triple verification. Every quote needs attribution, which means I need more time. How much time? Adrian asked. Another month, maybe 2. We don't have 2 months, Elena said. We don't have 2 weeks. I understand that, but I can't publish a story that will get the Times sued into oblivion. I'm sorry. He paused. There is one other option. What? You could go on record. Full interview, names and faces. It's riskier for you, but it makes the story harder to kill. When sources are anonymous, firms like Cade Investry can claim everything's fabricated. But if you're willing to stake your reputation on these allegations, we'll do it, Elena said. Elena, Adrian started. We'll do it, she repeated. When? I can have a camera crew ready tomorrow morning, but you need to understand what you're agreeing to. Once your faces are attached to this story, there's no anonymity, no protection. Cade Investry will come after you with everything they have. They already are, Elena said. At least this way, people will know why. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Okay, tomorrow, 9 a.m. My office. Bring anyone else who's willing to go on record. He hung up. Lillian looked at them. We're really doing this? Full public exposure? Unless you want to back out, Adrian said. I want to run screaming in the opposite direction. Lillian's smile was shaky. But I'm not going to. We started this together. We'll finish it together. Bish. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the bar hearing notice, the criminal investigation letter, the email from Victoria withdrawing her investment. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was over. They'd lost. Cade Investry had won. But something deeper, something that sounded like her grandmother's voice, whispered that surrender wasn't the same as defeat, that sometimes the only way to win was to refuse to quit. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m., text from the unknown number that had warned her before. You're about to make the biggest mistake of your life. The Times interview will destroy you. Walk away now, while you still can. Elena stared at the message. Then she typed back, Who are you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Someone who tried to fight them 20 years ago. Someone who lost everything because I thought the truth mattered more than survival. What happened? I was a junior partner at Cade Investry, found evidence of billing fraud, reported it to the managing partners. They buried it and destroyed me. disbarred me for fabricating evidence, blacklisted me from every firm in New York. I haven't practiced law in 18 years. Elena's hands were shaking. Then why are you warning me? If you know how this ends, because I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. You can still walk away. Take a job somewhere else. Rebuild quietly. Don't throw your entire life away for a principal. Is that what you wish you'd done? A long pause. Then, every single day. Elena closed her eyes. This was her future, spelled out by someone who'd walked this path before. Disbarment, exile, 20 years of regret. She could still back out, could skip the Times interview tomorrow, could take the settlement offer from Cade and Vestry and disappear into a smaller life somewhere else. Safe, quiet, invisible. She typed, "I'm sorry for what happened to you, but I can't walk away." "Then you're a fool." "Maybe, but I'm a fool who'll sleep at night." She blocked the number, deleted the messages, and went to bed. But Friday morning arrived with brutal clarity. Elena dressed in her best suit, the navy one she'd worn to the bar exam, to job interviews, to every important moment of her professional life. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone she barely recognized. Thinner, harder, eyes that had seen too much in too short a time, but still standing. The Times interview was scheduled for 9 a.m. Her bar hearing was at 10 a.m., 1 hour to tell her story, then face the consequences. Adrian and Lillian met her outside the Times building. Adrian looked sick. Lillian looked terrified. Elena probably looked both. "Last chance," Adrian said quietly. Elena shook her head. "No more last chances. We're doing this." They walked inside. Marcus Webb had set up in a conference room with a camera crew, 2 people, professional equipment, the kind of setup that meant this wasn't just a story. It was a production. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said. "We'll start with individual interviews, then do a group shot. The piece will run Sunday, print, and online. Are you ready?" No. Elena wasn't ready, would never be ready. "Yes," she said. Marcus interviewed her first. She sat in front of the camera and told her story. 7 years at Cade and Vestry, the invisible work, the gala, the viral video, the retaliation. "Why didn't you just take the settlement?" Marcus asked. Elena thought about that question, about all the reasons she should have quit, about how much easier her life would be if she'd just accepted being less than. "Because they're still doing it," she said. "Right now, while we're sitting here, there are junior associates at Cade and Vestry who are being overlooked and undervalued. There are assistants who are working twice as hard for half the credit. And if I take a settlement that silences me, then I'm complicit in that. I can't live with that. Even if fighting costs you everything. Especially then. Because if I'm not willing to risk everything for what's right, then what's the point of any of this?" Marcus interviewed Adrian next, then Lillian. Each of them told their piece of the story, the culture of exclusion, the systematic discrimination, the retaliation against anyone who spoke up. By the time they finished, it was 9:45. Elena had 15 minutes to get to her bar hearing. "Go," Marcus said. "We'll handle the rest." Elena ran. The bar hearing was in a nondescript office building in Lower Manhattan. Elena arrived at 9:58, breathless, her hair coming loose from its clip. Ruth Martinez was waiting in the lobby, looking annoyed. "Cutting it close," Ruth said. "I was at the Times." "I know, everyone knows. Cade and Vestry's lawyers have been here for 30 minutes, looking smug." Ruth grabbed Elena's arm, steered her toward the elevator. "Listen to me carefully. Nathan Cross is going to be hostile. He's going to try to provoke you. Do not take the bait. Answer questions calmly and factually. Do not get emotional." "I'll try." "Don't try. Do." The hearing room was small, institutional, depressing. Nathan Cross sat behind a desk that looked like it had survived 2 world wars, his expression already disapproving. Cade and Vestry's legal team, 3 attorneys in expensive suits, sat on the left side of the room. Elena and Ruth took the right. Nathan adjusted his glasses, looked at Elena like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. "Ms. Varelli, thank you for joining us. Let's begin." For the next hour, he questioned her about her work at Cade and Vestry, about files she'd accessed, about client information she allegedly stole. Elena answered every question, calmly, factually, even when Nathan's tone suggested he'd already decided she was guilty. Then Cade Investry's lead attorney, a man named Harrison Wells, stood to present their evidence. He laid out a timeline of file accesses, showed logs of Elena accessing client documents after business hours, presented emails where she allegedly discussed sharing confidential information with Adrian. It was all fabricated. Elena knew it was fabricated, but it looked real. "Ms. Varelli," Nathan said when Harrison finished, "how do you explain accessing confidential client files at 11 p.m. on your last day of employment?" "I didn't access those files. That log is falsified." "You're suggesting Cade Investry fabricated evidence?" "Yes." Nathan's eyebrows rose. "That's a serious allegation." "It's the truth. They've been manufacturing evidence against me from the beginning. The bar complaint, the criminal allegations, all of it. They're retaliating because I exposed their discrimination." "Or," Nathan said dryly, "you violated confidentiality agreements, and you're now attempting to deflect blame by making wild accusations against your former employer. They have a documented pattern of forcing out employees who don't fit their profile. We're not here to discuss Cade Investry's hiring practices. We're here to discuss your conduct." Nathan leaned forward. "Ms. Varelli, I've reviewed your case. I've read your defensive filings, and I've seen your viral video." Elena's stomach dropped. "You seem to have a pattern of making yourself the victim," Nathan continued, "of blaming powerful institutions for your own shortcomings. That video at the gala, was that about justice, or was it about attention? It was about telling the truth. Or was it about retaliation? You were angry at being overlooked, so you created a spectacle that damaged your employer's reputation." "I was angry at being mistreated, and now you're doing it again. Creating another spectacle with the New York Times, trying to destroy Cade Investry because you couldn't succeed there." Ruth put a hand on Elena's arm, a warning to stay calm. But Elena was done being calm. "I couldn't succeed there because the system was rigged," she said, her voice rising. "Because competence didn't matter if you didn't have the right last name. Because they systematically excluded anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of what a lawyer should look like." "And you have evidence of this systematic exclusion?" "Yes. 17 settled discrimination complaints. Demographic data showing a clear pattern of circumstantial evidence that proves nothing except that employees sometimes leave jobs." Nathan's voice was sharp. "What I have in front of me is concrete evidence of your misconduct, file access logs, timestamp documents, email chains. All fabricated." "Prove it." Elena opened her mouth, closed it. She couldn't prove it. Not here. Not without the kind of forensic analysis that took weeks. Nathan saw her hesitation and pounced. "You can't, can you?" "Because there's no conspiracy, Ms. Varelli. There's just a junior employee who violated professional ethics and is now trying to avoid consequences." "That's not—" "I'm recommending a 6-month suspension pending full investigation," Nathan said, "during which time you will not practice law in New York State. If the investigation substantiates these allegations, I'll recommend permanent disbarment." The words landed like a death sentence. Ruth was already on her feet. "Mr. Cross, with all due respect, this hearing has been a sham. You've allowed fabricated evidence, ignored exculpatory context, and demonstrated clear bias. Your objections are noted and overruled." Nathan stood. "This hearing is adjourned. Ms. Varelli, you'll receive formal notice of my recommendation within the week. You have 30 days to appeal." He walked out. Elena sat frozen, her ears ringing. 6-month suspension, possible permanent disbarment. Vestry International couldn't survive 6 months without her. It was over. Harrison Wells approached their table, his smile predatory. "Miss Martinez, my client is still willing to discuss settlement. If Miss Varelli withdraws her appeal and agrees to our previous terms, we can make this all go away." "Go to hell," Elena said. Harrison's smile widened. "Suit yourself. Enjoy the next 6 months." He left, his team trailing behind him like sharks smelling blood. Ruth turned to Elena. "We'll appeal. We'll fight this." "With what?" "Victoria pulled her funding. We have no money, no clients, and now I can't practice law." Elena's voice was hollow. "We lost, Ruth. They won. The Times story won't matter. It'll be published, people will be outraged for a week, and then they'll move on. Meanwhile, I'll still be suspended, Adrian will still be under investigation. Lillian will still be cut off from her trust fund. Elena stood, her legs shaky. We threw everything at them and they barely flinched. Elena, thank you for your help. I'll pay your fees as soon as I can figure out how. Elena walked out before Ruth could respond, made it to the street before her legs gave out. She sat on the courthouse steps, her expensive suit getting dirty, her carefully constructed armor cracking, and let herself feel it. The defeat, the humiliation, the crushing weight of knowing she'd lost. Her phone rang. Adrian. How bad? He asked. 6 months suspension, possible permanent disbarment. Silence. I'm sorry, Adrian said finally. His voice was rough. This is my fault. I should have... Don't. We made this choice together. Elena closed her eyes. What about you? My lawyer called during your hearing. The DA's moving forward with charges. Embezzlement. Fraud. I'll be arraigned next week. Of course. Of course it kept getting worse. We need to shut down Vestry International, Elena said. Cut our losses before... No. Adrian, no. We started this to build something better, to prove that doing the right thing matters. If we quit now, then they win. Not just against us, against everyone who ever tried to fight back. We can't fight if I can't practice law and you're in prison. Then we'll find another way. His voice was fierce. The Times story runs Sunday. Let's see what happens after that. If nothing changes, we'll shut down. But give it one more week. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him it was over, that hoping for a miracle was delusional, but she'd come this far on hope and rage. Might as well see it through. 1 week, she said. Saturday passed in a blur of despair and cheap wine. Elena sat in her apartment, ignoring calls from reporters who'd somehow gotten her number, and waited for Sunday. The Times story went live at 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Elena saw it first on her phone, the notification cutting through her half-sleep like a knife. Systematic discrimination at elite law firm. Former employees speak out. Below it, her photo, Adrian's photo, Lillian's photo. She opened the article with shaking hands. Marcus Webb had written a masterpiece of investigative journalism. Every allegation backed by documentation. Every claim supported by data. The internal memo featured prominently, along with Mark Chen's forensic analysis. Interviews with 3 other former Cade and Vestry employees who'd agreed to go on record about similar mistreatment. And there, in the middle of the article, was the video from the gala. Elena in her crimson dress, telling Marcus Chen exactly what she thought of him. The comments section was already exploding. Thousands of them, cascading in faster than Elena could read. This is why I left law. One worked at K&V for 2 years. Everything in this article is true. How is this legal? Dismantle them. Elena's phone started ringing. She ignored it. It rang again and again. By 8 a.m., the story had been shared 50,000 times. By 9 a.m., it was trending on Twitter. By 10 a.m., other news outlets were picking it up. CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg. By noon, Elena had interview requests from 20 different reporters. By 2 p.m., the Manhattan DA's office released a statement. They were expanding their investigation into Cade and Vestry to include potential ethics violations and fraudulent billing practices. By 4 p.m., 3 Cade and Vestry clients publicly announced they were reviewing their relationships with the firm. By 6 p.m., the New York State Bar Association announced they were opening their own investigation into the firm's practices. Elena watched it all unfold from her couch.